some fun with this. And what you want to do, once you have that connection with that other person, you want to imagine that that little remote that Luke was using, was trying to blast, is a magnet floating around your body. And you want to imagine that it's orbiting, and everywhere that that magnet floats outside of your body, it pulls the ball bearing. And what you'll notice is after a while, sometimes people can do this right away. Sometimes it takes a few seconds to click in, but it does happen. It can't not happen. It will happen. What you will notice in yourself first probably is that as that magnet floats around your body, the ball bearing will start to follow the magnet, and your body will follow the ball bearing. That's the first cool part. You can do that. You can practice that on your own to get the imagery and the accelerate your neuroplasticity in that direction. If you're using the gross physiology concept, where you're assuming someone's basic personality, you felt their nervous system click in with yours, and then you start doing that process. When you move forward, the person will sway forward. When that ball bearing shifts behind you because the magnet's moving behind you, and you start to sway backwards, they will follow you. Your body will shift and sway. Now, to develop this, you start solo by imagining the ball bearing and the magnet floating around you and getting your body to sway. Then you connect with another person. When you feel the Bluetooth synchronize, do your sway. Don't try to move them. Don't try to move them. If you try to move them, it changes how your brain relates to them. It changes how your nervous system relates to them. It creates a filter, but that two machines going to war. You don't want that. You want two machines becoming one machine. So you want to think about not about moving the other person, but about moving that they're a part of you and you're moving yourself. And if you move yourself using that imagery, it works better than any other imagery I've found. If you find one that works better, use that or teach me it. But what you'll find out, and after a very short period of time, you can reliably cause people to sway from front to back, from side to side. And when you get really ninja about it, you'll be able to make them do that without them realizing they're doing it. Okay. In fact, if you look at some of the demos when I'm doing, I'm actually talking to the person and making them sway, and they don't realize what's happening, and the audience is cracking up. Okay. If you've seen this phenomena or have had me do it to you, go ahead and type that in the chat box so I can see. Excellent. So we have a lot of people who've done that. It is a weird feeling. Yeah, it is. But that forms the foundation of the persuasion system that I teach. Everything we do, one of the most powerful things about the CPI system, even though it has the most powerful language patterns in the world that we teach you, this is the foundation. This is the energy that drives the language. And if you have this and you understand the ramifications of it, 80% of your persuasion is done before you open your mouth. And that's the piece that I want to get across to you. This is impossible to be caught. It's impossible. Well, you can't really fake it, honestly. And it powers and it fuels every single word that comes out of it. Plus, you can actually extract information from the target and use it to influence them. Those. Do we have any coaches or hypnotists or therapists on the chat tonight? Just type in yes if you do. Okay. There's a phenomena that we therapists go through, especially us as hypnotists and things like that, where you're working with a client, and I'm looking at my chair as I do this. You're working with a client, and then all of a sudden something comes out of your mouth, and you almost have this moment of terror, like you want to reach out and grab it. It's like, no, right? Because you don't know why you said what you just said. Right? And it hits the person, and you see this, and it was the exact thing they needed to hear. In that moment, you have no idea where it came from. I'm going to tell you where it came from. It came from that connection I just taught you how to create with anyone. Right? Is it hypnosis? Technically, yes, because it bypasses the critical faculty of the conscious mind. But this is the first thing we teach our persuasion students. It's also one of the few things you'll never see on YouTube, by the way, because it's our secret sauce, right? We have a whole module devoted to that. That's why I insist that people train with me live whenever possible. People call me up. They ask me all the time, David, which course should I get? Should I get Stealth CPI? Should I get Killer Influence? Or should I get the training in the video, or should I buy the live, or should I come to the live event? The first words out of my mouth, come to the live event. Because when you come to the live event, you get to work with me. When you come to the live event, you get to work with other people over and over and over again. And you get to feel this stuff and get feedback. Now, if you're in a situation where you can't travel, your resources won't allow you to come to the live event, the videos are the next best thing. So and for as long as I live and as long as I'm teaching you these things, I'm always going to tell you, get your ass to wherever I'm at, right? Because then you're going to get the magic. If you can't, then I'll give you recommendations for what courses to take, because we have a lot and we're coming out with more all the time. But that one right there, if you just take it and you just work with it every day and have fun with it, be playful with it, don't attach a lot of seriousness to it. Don't wait to the last moment in a situation or circumstance where it actually counts for a lot to start developing this, right? Don't wait till you're thirsty to start digging the well. You follow me? I know a lot of you are coming to Vegas, and I'll tell you guys about that later. It's going to be a party. How many guys of you are coming out to Vegas? Cool. Excellent. If not, why not? I'm going to miss you, man. All right. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. That's called the physiological state control and rapport. Now, that's, like I said, if this is the scope of the entire state control system and rapport, we've covered this, but it's a big one. It's one of those radioactive nuggets. The other thing you want to do when you start creating that powerful connection with people is echo their words constantly. Now, you can't just echo their words, but it covers about 80% of what you need to do verbally to get them to really pay attention and do what they're told to do, right? Or do what they're suggesting. I'm going in January. Cool. All right. Let me see what else is here. Is this good or good? Okay. I almost hesitate to ask this because I know Brandon is going to be going, no, don't say that. But I'm going to ask, do you have any questions about it before I move on to the next piece? Full Jedi shit training thing. Okay. I shouldn't say this, but I will. Okay. This is the beginning of a very, very, very powerful tool set. After a while, you'll be able to clear out lines of people. Like if there's a big line at a counter or something like that, you can actually learn how to throw a whammy on the nervous systems of the entire line and make it disperse, move faster. You can make people change lanes in traffic. It's scary what you can do. It sounds woo-woo. It sounds like David's full of shit. But, and don't believe me, just do these drills, come to the trainings, or if you need to, get the videos and practice the drills on the videos, and go out and play with it. All right, that's all I'm going to say. We're going to move on, okay? Which video has that training? Stealth CPI and Killer Influence. We do a little bit of it in the real world hypnosis videos, but if you really want to go deep dive, start with CPI, or Stealth CPI, Killer Influence, or Vibrational Influence. I don't recommend Vibrational Influence before you've had CPI or Killer Influence because it has prereqs in it. Okay. All right. So truly artful persuasion inspires people to want to do the things you want them to do. Remember, we're not about lying. We're not about cheating. We're not about stealing. We want to make people want to do the things we want to do. The way you do that is you have to pay attention to people at a level most people aren't used to doing. You have to step outside of what you want and into that person's perspective, tap into their emotional needs and desires. Now, the best part is Echo Technique will capture about 80% of that. So if you're familiar with the Echo Technique, like I said, you're already 80% there. But there's a question that you ask when you want to tap into the emotional drivers behind another human being. And that's what's important about X. We call this the criteria and values elicitation question. Everything human beings do is in response to a feeling, either a good one or a negative one. Yeah, it's either more of a feeling they want or a feeling they don't want. And what happens is when a person encounters a set of phenomena that match a certain checklist that they have, their body generates a feeling that they consider desirable or undesirable. Okay, so you have the criteria, the values, which has three components: the checklist, the feeling it generates, and the label they assign to it. Right. In a few slides, we're going to be talking about three of the most powerful language patterns that exist and how to use them. That language pattern is called the cause and effect language pattern. And then it has a cousin called the complex equivalence language pattern. Those two are direct expressions of a filter in your nervous system that has two basic functions. A, to create causal relationships between two phenomena that may or may not have anything to do with each other. And that's the power of the cause and effect language pattern. We'll visit that in a moment. Then you have the complex equivalence language pattern, which is the filter in your body that assigns a meaning to things. So think about this. A can cause B, and then we decide what A causing B means to us. If you look at that from another perspective, what we're talking about is belief. It's the structure of human belief. Okay? So when we feel something, or we have a cause, we have an effect, we have an equivalence. When we come back to criteria and values, the causal part of that formula is the checklist. You see, if you ask somebody, like, let's use a relationship example. Let's say two people are in a relationship, right? Two people are in a relationship, and you go to person A and you ask them, what's important to you about the perfect relationship? What do you absolutely have to know the relationship's right for you? What does that partner have to do? And person A says, well, I know you respect me. Or they say respect, and then you ask them, how do you know when you're getting respect? I know, this is the checklist. I know I'm being respected when you tell me the truth. When you don't worry about whether it's going to hurt my feelings, whether it's going to piss me off or make me sad. You tell me the truth because you know I deserve the truth, and that's how I know you respect me. So based on what the explanation I've just given you, if person A over here, if you tell them the truth, whether they like it or not, you don't mince words, you don't cut, you just lay it out. Anytime that person is presented with that criteria, that set of characteristics, they feel respect. They know they're getting the respect that they need. Contrast that with person B. Person B says, well, what do you need most in a relationship? And that person says respect. And again, you ask them, how do you know? How do you know when you're getting respected? And person B says, I know you respect me when you take my feelings into account before you say something. I know you respect me when you think about what you're going to say and say it in a way that you know is not going to upset me or hurt my feelings. Now, what do you think is going to happen when A and B get in a relationship? What do you think? Any idea? Talk to me. Talk to me. Absolutely. But guess what will happen? You guys nailed it. Both people are going to be in a fight, and each one is going to be accusing the other of not respecting the other person, even though from their perspective, from their projection, they're giving respect. You're right, Anthony. Divorce is not far away. Most of your conflicts in relationships happen not because you don't have the same value, but because the rules with which you know you're getting those values are different. This is where a true persuader starts to separate themselves from the pack. They know, someone who's trained like we are, we know that we can't assume that the way we understand respect is the way they understand respect. It's like we're both in a relationship and we're talking about how we want fruit. And I hand my partner an orange and they say, I don't want that. I want some fruit. What do you mean? I just gave you an orange. I want an apple. Okay, so criteria and values, by the way, have been around as long as NLP has been around. The problem is the vast majority of people and vast majority of neurolinguistic programmers are actually taught this. They can't make it work because they don't understand that the criteria is just as important as the label they assign to the value. So to put it, kind of bring this all together, do unto others as they demonstrate they want to be done unto. Listen to what I said. Do unto others as they demonstrate they want to be done unto. This is where echo technique starts and where criteria and values amplifies and accelerates that phenomena. Every human being that you meet, whether the conversation is deep and gut-wrenching and emotionally moving or superficial and casual, will tell you every single thing. They will give you on a silver platter or a golden platter. In this case, we're talking about the golden rule. They will give you every single thing you need to know to influence them in the direction you want them to go. If you just get out of yourself and pay attention. Okay? That's the ability that separates the real persuaders, good or bad. Good or bad. And there are some bad people out there. And if you don't understand these skills and you don't know how to use these skills and you don't know how to recognize when these skills are being used on you, you are going to be at the mercy of these skills. I gave my students in the class yesterday a long-ass diatribe that the real bad guys out there, they don't look like bad guys. They spend a lot of time, energy, and effort looking like the good guys. And there's a lot of well-funded, well-trained agencies with a vested interest in doing this to you, right? I'm not a persuasion cop. I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm here to protect you. I'm here to teach you and to show you how to get the life you want the way that you want. Because I don't want to sound so sappy, really. I can't stand to see people suffer. I just can't. And it bothers me when I see people being manipulated or powerless. I hate to see people with good dreams and good ideas and good aspirations hamstrung by the fact that they don't have the skills that these other people have, these other agencies have. So that's where I come from. I'm two prongs to end as much suffering as humanly possible and empower you. But to empower you, I need to show you what's possible. And to show you what's possible, I need to walk that talk too. And that's one of the things that we're big on. And most of you guys already know this. You know, the motto with real world hypnosis or NLP power is hypnotizing anyone, anytime, anywhere, for any reason, and getting the result no matter what. That's our credo, right? And our students walk that. So state control and rapport. State control is the ability to go into any psycho-emotional state at will, whether it's a negative state or a positive state. We're going to give you intense training on that in the coming few months during CPI or Killer Influence or whatever it is you come out for. If you come to the Secrets of Personality Transformation workshop out in Las Vegas, you're going to get a huge 7-stage introduction to changing your own mind and body, but that's a different topic for a different day. So let's look at this. If we want to create a specific outcome, I'm jumping ahead of the PowerPoint. I love that. We need to generate a state in the client that is conducive to them arriving at the decision that we want them to make. I gave you the building blocks of that. When I talked to you about the sway test and the kinesthetic rapport, right? But why is, and because our body states change, the filters that we use to parse our reality, it's called the emotional refractory period, that changes how we view our world and the communications we receive, so that we're automatically predisposed to following that line of thinking, to analyzing and judging the message we receive in harmony with those emotions. In fact, if you're telling compelling stories, Dr. Eric Knowles in his research on Omega strategies discovered that the more you can get the target of your influence to like you and trust you, and then identify and become fully absorbed, he called it transportation, in the story that you're telling, the more that person will start to take on the behaviors, the attitudes, the beliefs of the main characters in your story, in spite of what their pre-existing beliefs or prejudices or moods might have been. So storytelling combined with this kinesthetic rapport phenomena is one of the most powerful ways to get people to do what you want them to do without actually telling them to do it. Best part is, though, if you understand CPI, if you understand the language patterns we're going to talk about, you can embed structures within your story that amplify and accelerate the mechanism that you're activating through story and rapport. Does that make sense, or am I kind of talking Chinese to you? Just type in there if you get it. Yeah, we simplify these things. We'll do our best to simplify them for you. Okay, excellent. Mandarin? Sorry, Duke. Okay. All right. Susan's confused. Susan, if I know this is going to bug some people, type in what you're confused about, and then I'll try to answer it down the line. All right, let's go here. Okay. States are constellations of emotions and physiological conditions or attributes that tend to generate specific types of behaviors. We just kind of went in depth on that bullet point. The first step is in managing your own states and then getting rapport with other people. We use the term state control or state management when we talk about controlling our own state, or using our state control and telling powerful stories to influence others as state management. Rapport, as we covered earlier, is a state of connection between two or more individuals that opens the door for more subtle and powerful communications to take place. Okay. So within the sphere, I said this earlier, but again, just to reiterate, within the sphere of rapport, all persuasion techniques are viable. Without it, nothing short of a gun to the head or some form of extreme extortion is likely to work. Okay. Now, that's also rapport is also not necessary if you can demonstrate extreme authority in the minds of your subjects. You can do that through 4 basic categories of power. Right. The first, it's not in this. What I'm about to tell you isn't directly in this particular PowerPoint. So I'm gonna jump back to my face. And I want you to write these down. Remember, write down honest signals. And then right next to the term honest signals, I want you to write 4 bullets: influence, mimicry, activity, consistency. Right next to the influence PowerPoint, I want you to write 4 categories of power. You ready? If you're ready, type "I'm ready," and we'll keep going. Okay. Bullet number 1, first category of power: positional authority or positional power. Positional power is what we would call executive authority, the ability to make a demand or give a command or suggestion and enforce it. So if you think from a military perspective, if the general tells a sergeant to go do something and he tells that sergeant to take the hill, the sergeant refuses to take the hill, he can have that person put in jail, can have them shot, can have them punished in some way. They have some way to enforce. Make it number 1. Yes, Leslie. They have some way, either through their position or whether it's they've taken it by force or by mutual agreement, they have the ability to enforce and execute their power and directives. Okay? The second category, and you see this, the president has supposedly this kind of authority. You see this in a lot of corporate CEOs. Do this or you're fired, that kind of an energy. Positional authority. It's the top of the charts. If you can get it, use it, right? But once again, just like any authority tactic, if you use just that, you're going to wind up with a lot of passive aggressive behavior. You're going to wind up with a lot of pushback, a lot of what I call the fuck you factor, right? Passive aggressive behavior, reactance. These are all things we've covered in other videos, other webinars. People will do what you say, but they'll find ways to make you pay for it. The productivity will go down. The return will go down. They won't do it as enthusiastically. you're just going to have to micromanage them to make sure that they get the work done, because they don't like you, but they will do it because you're the boss. That's a good kind of authority to have, but if you mismanage it, it's going to come back to bite you in the face. All right. That's why I am genetically unemployable, because I have an extremely high reactance factor. See, people tell me what to do, and the first thing I say is "fuck you." Right. In fact, my mom used to, when my wife and my mom are talking behind my back, my mom said to my wife one day, she goes, when David was little, the fastest way to get him to do anything we wanted him to do was tell him not to. And she gets a big kick out of that. In fact, the year I graduated from high school, I got, how when you're not doing well in school, they send a progress letter home or some kind of progress report home to let them know, hey, he's behind in his assignments. He's not paying attention in class. You know those kind of letters I'm talking about? Type it if you know. Right. I got one the day of my graduation. The day of my graduation, I got this letter in the mail from one of my teachers, and it said this: David often responds to assignments he doesn't like by not doing them. So yeah, I get it, right? I'm the poster child for yeah, I know, Danny. I feel you, brother. Okay, so remember, when we want to be effective leaders, we want people to want to do what we want them to do. Okay, remember that. If we're having to browbeat people or coerce people or threaten people to do the things we want them to do, we're not embracing the CPI school of persuasion. Your goal is to get everything you want by showing everyone you meet how to get exactly what they want by giving you what you want and making them feel ridiculously good about it in the process. If you do that, you'll never have to lie. You'll never have to cheat. You'll never have to steal or coerce or worry. And you will get more dates. You will have better relationships. You will make more money. You will be more successful. You will change the world in whatever way you want if you can just follow that. I don't want to say dick. It sounds too much like dick, but that idea. Okay. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Okay. State of rapport. Let me see. Let me check my notes here. Now, you should probably know this if you don't already. I'm going to highlight this if I can. Most individuals that you meet are walking around on autopilot. That means they're in their own head, their own personal trance. They're in their head, not connected to the world. And again, our job, and as a hypnotist, our job is a lot of times we think we have to put people in trance. The truth is you don't. The truth of the matter is that your job won't be getting people into trance. It will be getting, was that squirrel under influence? Yes. Your problem will be getting them out. Okay. Your problem will be getting them out of trance, because by and large, the trances people are in are largely not useful for the outcomes they want for themselves or you. So you're going to learn how to tap into people's own personal trances to get to do what you want. That's what Criterion Values does. That's what Echo Technique does. That's what Kinesthetic Rapport does. Power, executive power, is a great foundation, but you need to wrap it in the other three forms of power if you want to be really effective. Now, this is not the same as the 4 horsemen of unstoppable hypnotic influence. Although you'll start to see, because we're going to talk about those in a minute too, where they start to dovetail. So the first bullet point, I'm going to close this loop because I know some people, I'm driving, the procedural people are going nuts because I started with the first bullet point and then I chased a major squirrel. So we're going to come back to the second bullet point, and that is directed emotion, passion. Somebody who has the ability to generate an intense amount of emotion and in an organized, focused manner express it. PowerPoint? No, that's not on your PowerPoint, guys. Okay. If they can direct that emotion in a focused and logical, strategic way, in other words, it's organized. It's not people spazzing out. It's not people spazzing out or having hysterics. You see this a lot when two people on either side of the political arena, conservative versus liberal, start to try to have a discussion. Within moments, usually the conservative is sticking to specific points. They're citing laws. They're citing what's the word I'm looking for? Precedents, right? Because one of the meta programs that a lot of conservatives have is a deep and abiding respect and desire for traditional institutions, established rules, and the way things have always been done. And so they tend to go back to facts. They tend to go back to classical traditional points of view. Liberals have a meta program, and it doesn't really matter. I'm not one or the other. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about meta programs, way people filter reality. People who are very on the liberal side of things have a meta program that's constantly looking for injustice, that's constantly looking at who's being hurt. And the moment they sense any form of injustice, they get emotional, they get angry, they go on a crusade. Okay? And so what happens many times is you have this battle between positional authority and emotional authority. Now, one is not more powerful than the other. In fact, when emotion is delivered in a clear, organized, concise manner, it has the power to usurp executive or positional powers authority. You understand that? If you're going to get emotional, you got to be organized and deliver it in an organized way. But what happens many times is these people, they devolve into name calling and personal attacks instead of talking in clear, concise, emotionally powered points. They devolve to name calling, attacking the person instead of the issue. And before you know it, it's a clusterfuck. Pardon my French, but that's basically what it devolves to. Okay. So remember, and by the way, for those of you who want to up your charisma, how many people here want to up your charisma? Just so I know. Here's one of the characteristics of people who are naturally charismatic. They have the ability to generate an intense emotional charge and express it in an organized, laser-focused way. Body language and posture and physiology and eloquence aside, that's actually one of the powers of super charismatic leaders, is the ability to generate emotion in them, activate it within you, and use clear, concise, well-scripted, or in many cases, some people have a natural eloquence that comes out, way they can use that emotion to fuel their verbs and their languaging. Okay. And that's where you guys in this webinar and other courses and things like that, that's really what you're going to be learning how to do. Most people can generate emotions, but they can't generate it effectively and express it in the same time. So we're going to show you the different ways to generate emotion, connect with another human being. We're going to give you specific language patterns that by themselves are uniquely powerful because they're neurologically active. They go to different parts of the brain and do cool things. When you put them all together, you get a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. Okay. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. There are a couple global categories of techniques that we're going to be talking about. First is within the sphere of rapport, everything works. We've covered that. Outside of rapport, nothing works short of physical threats and intimidation. State control. Yep. Okay. We talk about getting rapport with people. One of the things that you have to do, there's two ways that you can control the state of yourself or another person. You can either blend with the state. In other words, if they're, let me put my face up here. If their energy is going in a certain direction, if you meet it head on, then you become the enemy. No matter what we do, we want to create alignment, blending and merging with a person's direction of emotion. I'm going to talk about the echo technique from a different perspective in just a moment. And I want you to go out and play with it and notice what happens. Okay. So you have to, this is the last thing you want to do is butt heads with people head on. Okay. The other way that you can breaks or change somebody's state is to interrupt it. Now, if somebody is in a, on a scale of 0 to 10, they have an emotional intensity of, 5 to 7, you might be able to interrupt that state with a quick joke or a change of posture or, oh, look, a squirrel kind of a thing. You can interrupt that state. Once that state is broken, you can start to guide them to a different place. But if you're dealing with somebody who is in a very, very intense emotional state, I'm going to give you a story in just a minute that I heard from Kenrick Cleveland so many years ago that exemplifies that. If they're in a very powerful state, you're probably not going to be able to generate a big enough interrupt to that state to get them out of it. So by and large, in the scope of things, the most useful way to guide and manage the states of other people is to align with it. I'm going to give you 2 stories that might help to bring this point home for you. Okay. The first one was I first learned from someone who I consider to be the god of conversational persuasion. His name is Kenrick Cleveland. Type yes if you know who that is. Cool. I figured most of you would. I have the world's greatest amount of respect for him, and I highly recommend pretty much everything he puts out, but especially his original Max Persuasion. Okay. So let me tell you this story, but I wanted to give Kenrick full credit for it. Once upon a time when Kenrick was first learning how to be, he was treading the waters, learning how to do sales and things like that, he got a job at a fitness club. And back in that time, I don't know if you've ever been to a fitness club, but the members have a card that they have to show when they come in. And his job was to stand at the counter by the front door and making sure that people had their card and swipe as they come in and out. And back then, steroids were a big thing, right? And so one day, Kenrick is sitting behind the desk, and this huge professional bodybuilder, this champion level bodybuilder, comes storming up to the counter out of the men's room, and he goes, "God damn it, there is no toilet paper in the men's room." And Kenrick is like, right? He's like, this guy could bench press him and a Buick at the same time. And at that moment, he has a choice. He says, I can argue with him. He can probably bench press me. I got to do something else. And he looks at the guy and he goes, God damn it. There is no toilet paper in the men's room. You are a good customer. You're a loyal customer. People love and respect you. We deserve to treat you better. You deserve to have toilet paper in the men's room. And the guy looks at him and goes, hold on, man, calm down. Right? That's what I mean when I say align with the energy, right? That's what I mean. It doesn't mean if they get mad, you get mad at them. That's a common misconception in many older students in NLP. It means whatever they get mad at, you get mad at it too. And when you get a little bit madder about it than they do, they try to calm you down. But in that moment, you're no longer the bad guy. You're no longer the enemy. You're their friend. You're their ally. Now, the next part of that story is interesting too. A few weeks later, Kenrick's sitting at the front counter again, and another guy comes walking in off the street. Another big, muscle dude, and didn't have his membership card. Kenrick wouldn't let him in. They went round and round for a few minutes. The guy was getting madder and madder and madder. Finally, the guy lost it. He reaches across the counter, grabs Kenrick, and pulls him across the counter. And right as he's pulling Kenrick across the counter, a hand comes out of nowhere and grabs him and pulls him forward. And there's that big muscle dude that Kenrick was talking to a few weeks earlier. He goes, he's my friend. You leave him alone. And the guy that was giving Kenrick a hard time goes, sorry, dude, I didn't know. Right? Problem solved. This is what happens when you blend and merge and ally yourself with the emotional direction people want to go, the vector of their emotions, to use a more physics-based term, right? But it takes a little bit more control of your own state, because if they're mad about something, you got to kind of go there yourself. You got to get the meat engaged right? You guys get that? Does that make sense? Go ahead and type, I get it if you get it. Cool. Is this making sense to you guys so far? Are you guys kind of seeing how all this comes together? Is it useful? Cool. Cool. All right. I don't want to bore you. The next example of understanding state control and rapport and why it's so important. I know you want to get to the language patterns, and I know you want to get to these other two power points that I'm talking about, but I really want to drive this home and really get you to understand just how powerful well expressed directed emotion can be. You want to learn how to direct emotion within yourself and how to align with the emotions of other people. Okay. Most of you know, I mentioned this at the beginning of the webinar, that I came out here to Los Angeles to go to school for acupuncture and Oriental medicine. I have a degree, a master's degree in acupuncture and Oriental medicine. I'm a diplomate of Oriental medicine. I've studied acupuncture, herbs, qigong, body work. I'm very, very involved in the psyche and what I call Chinese energetic or medical psychiatry, which is how the Chinese approached influencing the mind and the emotions through their systems. In fact, I'm going back for my doctorate starting in September, which is why a lot of you who are trying to get in to see me for sessions and stuff like that are kind of getting jostled around because we're having to clear everything. Thank you. That's a whole law of attraction story in and of itself, but today's not about law of attraction, so I'll tell you about that on another webinar. But one of the things you should probably know is that when I was in acupuncture school, at that time, I think each of the interns had to do about 1,800 hours, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,800 hours of clinical rotations. And so we would go in for our shift. And one day I'm walking into my shift. I'm just getting started. And I used a lot of my conversation. I actually pioneered and practiced a lot of my more ninja conversational hypnosis stuff on my acupuncture patients to see what would happen. Because as an intern, you're basically bulletproof. But I walk into I'm coming into the acupuncture area, and one of my fellow interns walks out of a treatment room carrying a clipboard, and the look on her face was like she had just seen the world's worst tragedy. She just had this energy about her. It was like, and she looked at me. And she looked back at the door that was closed, and she went, "This is yours, buddy." And I'm like, "Oh shit! What did you just get me into?" And so I walk into the room, and sitting in the room is a young man, good-looking guy. And he's just. See if I can move my camera a little bit so you can see. He's just sitting here like this. And the room, the energy in the room, the heaviness in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Have you ever seen somebody who was so sad and depressed and grieving, and that the energy was just like the room was just like lead around him, right? So I walk in, and that hits my already developed sensitive nervous system. I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to do here? So we start talking. I automatically assume people's physiology. That's just something I do. If you ever get in person with me, the minute I go to talk to you, 9 times out of 10, I just start sitting the way you're sitting. Or I've just done it so much, it just happens. So I just sat down, I got my clipboard, and I assumed his physiology. I started to talk to him. And I discovered as we talked that he was gay, and he had just lost his partner to AIDS like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And he himself had just been diagnosed with HIV. So as you can probably imagine, it doesn't get much worse. But I'm looking at this guy, and I'm thinking to myself, acupuncture is not enough. I got to do, with the state this guy is in, it's just not enough. And so, because I'd been spent about 10 years by that time working with different forms of state control. This is before I ever started teaching anybody. This is just something I was doing for me. I assumed his physiology, and using what we call polarity exercises or polarity technique, I started to go into the state with him. And I just kept going. And it was not fun, by the way. It was not a fun place until I felt that connection I told you about, that syncing up feeling. And then, Danny, it is a danger if you don't have state control. If you have state control, you can walk into the gates of hell and pull people out. But most people who learn rapport skills never learn state control. Most trainers I have encountered, most systems I have encountered, only pay lip service to it. They say control your state, but they don't really drill you on it. They don't make you do it until you can own it backwards and forwards. Back to the story. I feel it. I know he's with me now. And I continue to talk, and I actually asking more questions than I am speaking. But when I do speak, I use his words. And slowly I start to shift my physiology back to an upright position. Now, sidebar. Your physiology controls your psychology. For every psycho-emotional state that you have, there is a posture and a breathing pattern that make it work. As I'm down there with him, I start to change the physiology. I start to change my mood. And he started to follow me. Now, if I'd have done it too fast, I'd have broke it like a soap bubble. And this is one of the problems that we have in the realms of persuasion and influence. We're not patient enough. You have to pay attention to your subject so you know where they're at. But he started to follow me. And as he did, his mood started to lift. And he became much more open to my words. He became much more in sync with me. Now, one of the things I did back then, I still do it when I don't do much needling anymore because I fix it faster with the technologies we've developed. But one of the things that I would do with people as I'm going through their intake is I would use conversational hypnosis to prime their nervous system for rapid healing, for rapid symptom removal, things like that. When I get them on the table, how many people have actually had acupuncture? Go ahead and say yes if in the chat room if you had that. Okay. If you haven't had acupuncture, one of the things that happens is after you've gone through the intake, we've taken your pulse, we've looked at your face, we've read your tongue, whatever we're going to do, we've got a diagnosis. We put you on the table. We put needles in specific points all around the body. And then you have to cook for a little while. We put a heat lamp on you. Maybe we cover the parts that don't have needles on them so that you're comfortable. And then we let you just kind of cook for a little while. Yes, I know it's a squirrel, John. Deal with it. But what I did and the way I practiced my hypnosis was as I was needling the points, I would describe what the actions of each point were utilizing the language patterns I'm about to teach you. And then I would put them into I would say I tricked them into a hypnotic state because they were already in a hypnotic state. But what I did, for those of you who know the 4 magic bullets, this will be funny for you. If you know the element induction, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll learn it when you come to one of our trainings. I had them, once all the needles were in and they were ready to go, I would have him close his eyes and relax the tiny muscles in his eye. I would tell him it's an ancient Chinese meditation technique. And I would have him relax his eyelids until they wouldn't work, spread that relaxation through his entire body. Those of you who know what I'm doing know that it is not an ancient Chinese meditation technique, right? It's actually a formal hypnotic induction we call the 4 magic bullets. That's exactly what I did with this guy. After I created between us a deep connection and openness to my suggestion. Everything came together. 40 minutes later, he got up off that table. He had he didn't have a great smile, but he had a smile. He was walking straighter. His energy was better. You know, when in the clinic, we don't see people a lot, so I didn't really see him again after that. But I know he got off that table a better human being than he got on it. So when I talk about these things, regardless of what end of the spectrum that you're going with, the ability to connect and direct emotion, both within yourself and between you and other people, is the second form of power. The third form of power is called expertise. You all know people like this. People who are so good at their jobs that they can walk into the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a courtroom or let's use a courtroom or a Fortune 500 company and tell the boss he's an idiot, he's a jerk off, and get away with it because his expertise is so high, so strong, you can't replace it and you can't argue with it. You guys know guys like that? People like that? You might even be one. Right? You might know people who utilize their level of expertise and knowledge. They always have to be right. You know these guys as a shield that protects them. Okay, having a high level of expertise is the third form of power. And if it's high enough, if your expertise is great enough, you can use it to trump emotion, and you can use it to trump positional authority. Right? The fourth category of power is the one you're here to learn most about. And that's mastery of conversational dynamics, the ebb and flow, the give and take of conversations. These are what I call the conversation or social ninjas. These are people who can walk into a room full of Fortune 500 CPOs and play the room like a fiddle, know how to stroke the right person here, create alliances with that person there, and they never call attention to themselves except if you were to sit back and watch them directing all the ideas and conversations of everybody else. That's where you're going in this training and in future trainings, the ability to master the dynamics of conversation, the ebb and flow, the give and take, right? And that's where this foundation is really important. So those are the 4 kinds of power that can lead to influence, which causes people to mimic you, your conversational patterns, your gestures, and so forth. Okay? Loop closed. Does it make sense now? Cool. All right. Let me look at my PowerPoint. They went through all the trouble to force me to do one. Okay, we're going to talk about nuclear-powered hypnotic language. You guys ready for this? I realized fully ahead of time that this is going to be review for some of you. Somebody said no. Who's not? You're not ready for nuclear-powered hypnotic language? Spare the fallout. All right. We'll do what we can about the fallout. All right. There's actually 7 patterns that we teach in Stealth CPI and in our basic persuasion course. We're going to talk about, we don't have time for every single one because there's other things that Brandon wanted me to cover in this webinar for you guys. So first and foremost, nuclear-powered language. I actually gave you the first 2 up front. They were cause and effect and complex equivalence. When I tell people about the most powerful language patterns that exist, especially when I'm talking to neurolinguistic programmers or Ericksonian hypnotists, they get big, their eyes get big, they start to drool a little bit until they actually hear which patterns I'm going to talk about. Because the patterns I'm about to share with you, pardon me, I'm about to cough. The language patterns I'm about to share with you are the most powerful hypnotic language, individual language patterns that exist. But one of the reasons that they're so powerful is because they don't call attention to themselves. When people think of persuasion from NLP or conversational hypnosis or Ericksonian hypnosis, the first things that they zero in on are something called embedded commands. Type yes if you know what an embedded command is. Okay. I don't want to bore you with stuff you guys already know, but I do have to talk to people who don't know. An embedded command is where you actually take a small command and hide it like a subliminal message inside of a normal statement or question. There's a specific way that we do it. We teach it. We do teach them. We just don't teach them first. The problem with an embedded command is it takes an extra level of verbal agility to do. It takes extra training to do them well, and you have to do a lot of them. And since it's one of the sexier, more James Bond kinds of languaging that most people hear about, it's almost always the first thing they look for. Here's the thing you need to understand when it comes to hypnotic language. The realm of the hypnotist, of the covert hypnotist, of the conversational hypnotist is in the background. The master of conversational hypnosis is never obvious unless it's strategically useful to be obvious. People like embedded commands. They like things called quotes patterns or thought binding or what they call double binds because they're cool. They kind of lock the brain into certain ways of thinking. But they're also sexy. And that means that everybody knows about them. They're the first things everybody learns. And whenever anybody has any indication whatsoever that you're trying to persuade them and you know NLP or hypnosis, they're the first things that they look for, and they're the first things that will get you caught. Okay? Most people fail at conversational hypnosis, NLP, killer influence, not because the technology isn't real and doesn't work. It's because they don't know how to shut their fucking mouth and be in the background. They're lazy. They spend so much time training with other people who know this stuff that they automatically assume everyone around them knows it too. Or they think that they're doing something underhanded or sneaky, and so they never actually use the technologies that they've been trained in. My goal here in teaching this to you and explaining these things to you is to remove the barriers to implementing this material, because this material will help you if you use it. If you don't use it, you might as well not be on the webinar. So if you intend on using it, if you're committed to using it, type "I am committed to using it and learning it" in the chat room. Otherwise, go away. What he said. Perfect. And I know most of you are telling me the truth. That's cool. All right. So when I start telling people about these language patterns, if they're trained in NLP, if they're trained in the sexy shit, that's the first thing they think I'm talking about. Then I start talking about the actual language patterns that are, in fact, the most universal, unstoppable, coolest language patterns out there. They get kind of disappointed. They're like, "Oh, really?" And they don't get it. They don't understand it. So the patterns we're about to play with, you will have to do some writing. I will ask you to give me some examples, some samples that you've written. Another thing, if you have lots of chocolate nearby or some other sugary substance, chocolate works best. I suggest you keep it handy, because as we talk about hypnotic language, your brain is going to change. Okay? You cannot work in hypnotic language patterns without undergoing the effects of the language patterns. And that will put you in a type of trance, a learning trance in this case, but it will be a trance. Then you will need extra blood sugar to process the changes that you're undergoing. You follow me? Okay, good. All right. So the nice thing about these patterns is they're powerful, they're easy, they're effective. They won't flag you. They won't get you caught. They're such a fundamental part of the filtering system that creates our experience of reality, the movie we're living, that we can't not think in them. We think in them, therefore when we talk, we automatically talk in them. Therefore, full circle, if we deliberately talk in them, their brain undergoes the process we're talking in. So if I use a cause and effect statement with somebody and I do it properly, and remember what I said earlier, cause and effect statement, that's the first language pattern we're going to learn. The cause and effect language pattern, its primary function is to take two things and create a causal connection between them. It gives us either real or illusory the experience of one thing causing another thing. You get that? Using the cause and effect language pattern, I can make anything I want plausibly seem to cause anything else I want. Now think about that for a moment. What if you had the power to make any one thing that you can make your subject aware of generate another effect in them, or you decide what effect what thing causes another thing? What if you had that power to do that in somebody's way of thinking? What would that do for you? That's right. Okay. Now, the thing you understand is every human being on the planet is using this language pattern. They can't not use it. They're just not using it effectively at least 51% of the time. Okay. So remember, There's a few other things that this pattern does, a few other aspects that it has, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to practice them. But the big rule, when I ask you, when I say this to you, when I quiz you later, what does the cause and effect language pattern actually do? It makes any two things appear, it can make any one thing appear to cause something else that you decide. Okay? Say that any way you want, but remember, it creates a causal relationship between two things that may have absolutely zero connection with each other. Your brain is doing this all the time anyway. It automatically happens. The difference now is you're going to learn how to take control of this pattern fully and completely and utilize it deliberately. Is that okay? Good. All right. Let's move on. I'm getting fired up now. Best part is they also work in any form of linguistic communication. It works wonderfully well in speaking, obviously. It works in video. It works in email. It works in texting. It works in letters. It works in advertising and marketing. In fact, one of the homework assignments I'm going to give you is after you learn this language pattern completely, I want you to go and read your shampoo bottle. I want you to go and read any advertising or marketing pamphlet for a car company, a medicine, any brochures you get about homes or anything, and pay attention to the structure of what they're saying. Okay? You can use this one-on-one. You can use it in groups. It works just as powerfully on 100 people or 500 people on a webinar as it does in one-on-one conversation because it affects every single person that can hear your voice or read your words. Get that? One-on-one or in mass, it works on anybody who can read or hear it. Okay? The powerful hypnotic language pattern, the first one is completely covert. It can instantly induce trance when it's used properly. It doesn't sound like a language pattern. That's what's so amazing about these patterns we're going to share with you, is that they don't sound hypnotic, and yet they completely control your perception of reality. They completely control your thought processes, or at least if not fully control, influence it to such a degree that if you're not aware it's being done, you don't even think to challenge it. Okay, they work in any combination, and they're easy. They actually are. It won't feel easy, depending on how far we get into the languaging. I don't think we're going to get into the adverb adjective precepts tonight, which is the one that I think is the most obviously trancy one. But cause and effect, complex equivalence, awareness, that's where we're going. So if you didn't, in case I don't close all the loops later, there's three: cause and effect, complex equivalence, awareness. Okay, so here we go. Top three patterns: awareness, cause and effect, complex equivalence. Now, we were just talking about cause and effect. We're going to close that loop in a minute. The most powerful language pattern that exists, that's what I said, the most powerful language pattern that exists is the awareness language pattern. Notice, these are examples. Notice, realize, aware, understand, recognize, comprehend. This is a good time to have a thesaurus because now I want you to come up with three of your own. You can do that when we're offline, or if you have one handy, do it now. Type them into the chat box as I continue to talk. I'm not going to look at them yet. I'm going to continue to teach. The reason that the awareness language pattern is so powerful, from my perspective, two reasons. A, it's what we call a presupposition. A presupposition is the neurological equivalent of an assumption. There are certain things that your body and your mind must take in and process automatically, as if it were 100% true, in order to create understanding of what you just heard or read. You understand what I'm saying? In order for you to make sense of the things I'm saying, there are elements that are largely unspoken that form the foundation of what I'm saying, that your brain and nervous system automatically process and work on as if they're true. And the only way to become aware of this process is if I actually give you an exercise that forces your brain to do something a little bit different. Now, it takes a little bit of a time to do, and I'm happy to do it just to give you the experience of it. But I can skip that exercise and just move forward if that's what you want for the sake of time. Just type in the chat real quick what it is that you want me to go. You want me to skip the drill to become more aware, or do you want me to just teach you how to use the awareness pattern and what it does? Okay, that's pretty overwhelming. Okay, for those of you who want to know about how you parse language, just think of it this way. For everything, every noun that I give you, every person, place, or thing that comes out of my mouth, your brain searches through a filing cabinet, finds every single reference to it, spits it up, and it fills in what you think I said, or it fills in the words you heard with your internal meanings for it, which may have nothing to do with my own internal meanings for it. Okay, that's as far as I can tell you with it right now. NLP calls it a transderivational search. It happens so fast that you're never aware of it unless we do a specific drill to call your attention from it. But that's another drill for another time. So I promise next time I see you in person or in a video, you'll learn very, very well how to do this. So we're going to learn about how to tactically use it. Before we get into how to tactically use it, I want to tell you that the power of the awareness presupposition, the awareness verbs category, is that it causes your brain to focus on or begin or become aware of any state or process or experience that follows the word. It's so powerful and so pervasive, it works even when you know it's being done and are trying to resist it. The reason this is true in my world is because the filter, this language pattern, like some of the language patterns we talked about earlier, is connected to a filter in your brain, in your neurology. I call it the awareness filter. You see, I believe that the filters in your brain that create your reality have a hierarchy to them. And I believe the higher up that hierarchy you go, the more powerful and pervasive the influence you wield. And right at the pinnacle, I believe, right at the pinnacle of those filters is this awareness filter. You see, we said cause and effect was really powerful, that using the cause and effect language pattern, which we're going to close this loop with, you can make any one thing appear to cause any other thing. But before you can even begin that process, you first have to become aware of it. True or not true? Can you, in your mind, create a cause and effect, a causal relationship between two things without first becoming aware of either one? That's right. Therefore, if I can control what you pay attention to, I can control the direction of thought. I can say, I can cause you to focus on the data in a presentation that most fully validates the argument I'm trying to make, while at the same time causing you to automatically ignore or disregard the elements that might weaken my position or strengthen yours. You see, I can direct your awareness. You follow me? We're going to prove the power of this right now. Okay? I am going to give you a string of simple awareness statements. I want you to summon up every ounce of willpower that you have and do your best to resist it. So as you begin to become aware of the sound of my voice, you may not have noticed yet how your mind is following all of my suggestions as you become aware of the feeling in the big toe of your right foot. And then for some mysterious reason, you recognize that there may be a similar sensation or a different sensation in the lobe of your left ear. As you realize that energy is traveling to the tip of your nose once again, you may start to understand that for some mysterious reason, just hearing the body location that follows the awareness verb causes your mind to go there. And as you comprehend the impact and the power of what that means, that you can literally become aware of the fact that you can direct people's internal awareness external. You can direct people's external awareness internal. You can begin to understand that the process of going inside to outside or outside to inside is a trance, that trance is completely under your control. And as the understanding and the comprehension of that ability connected to this language pattern emerges in your mind and you recognize it, you can also realize your mind has been going pretty much everywhere I've asked it to go, in spite of the fact that I told you not to do it and to fight it. True or not true? Some of you may still be deep in trance. Bottom line, if I say, as you become aware of the sensation in the big toe of your right foot, notice what your mind does first. Right? As you realize that sensation is also moving into the big toe of your left foot, you may not have realized it until now. That's my point. Unless, I sincerely doubt you guys are going to go out on the street and say, look, I am going to tell you to pay attention to something and I want you to do your best to resist it. Now, you know what I'm doing. I told you to do your best to fight it. And yet, what happened? What happened? It still happened. That's right. That's why I consider the awareness pattern to be the most powerful of all the hypnotic language patterns. A, nothing you do or process or experience happens until some level of your neurology becomes aware of it, whether that's a conscious awareness or an unconscious awareness. No processes happen until that awareness takes place. And you have two levels of awareness. You have conscious awareness and unconscious awareness. But your conscious awareness is fed by your unconscious awareness. You can only become consciously aware of the things that your unconscious mind decides to let you be aware of. Think about that for a moment. Okay? That's when I say your conscious mind is the least informed and the last to know, that's what I mean. Using this language pattern, you can control a person's unconscious awareness and their conscious awareness so that people's ideas, thoughts, beliefs hone in on the data or begin to undergo the state, process, or experience that follows the awareness verb. So if we go back and we look at these words, where'd it go? Hold on a second. Words like notice, realize, aware, understand, recognize, comprehend. Now, there's a couple of drills that we do. We won't have time to do them here. Normally, when I teach people to do this, I have you write out 3 basic sentences utilizing this pattern. So I might say something like, as you realize the power of these patterns, you'll naturally want to learn more. As you become aware of how these patterns work, you'll quickly find new ways of using them to improve every aspect of your life. Have you noticed yet how powerfully these patterns work, even when you know they're being used on you for your highest good? Have you? I want you to take a few moments and write down 3 examples, or if you want, just copy these down to install the process and structure into your mind more fully through your kinesthetics. Okay, allow the awareness of the structure of how these work to reach every level of your body and mind. Recognize that it's happening consciously and unconsciously, because part of the job of an instructor is to teach all of you, to allow every part of you to become more fully aware and to comprehend the structures and the usage and the abilities that these patterns give you, and to give you the understanding that this is not something new you have to learn. You've been using this all of your life anyway. So you don't have to learn something new. You just have to reorganize what you've already been doing to a more useful and deliberate and strategic level of usage. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. So that's the awareness language pattern. Some business applications might sound something like this. Mr. Prospect, as you go through the agreement we've talked about, you'll rapidly comprehend that every single thing that you realized was important to you is contained in this presentation. And as you focus in and recognize all of the things that matter most to you, you'll naturally feel good about going forward and jumping into the agreements and the projects that you know will bring you the things that you desire most from our relationship together. Okay? Come out of trance. As you recognize the power of these language patterns, you'll naturally find yourself using them in every part of your everyday life. As you recognize that our company is the most technologically advanced and customer-oriented business of its type in the world, you'll rapidly recognize that you made the right decision by coming on board. As you go through this insurance policy and you realize that it takes care of your family in all of the ways that we've discussed, you'll begin to recognize that we've got your best interest at heart and that we're only going to do the things that make you feel secure for your family and for yourself. Okay, so we can put these words in any kind of a copy that we want. Simply recognizing the power of CPI allows you to feel good about moving forward and learning all of the processes we teach, because knowing them will allow you to become aware of when people are trying to influence you with or without your consent, and that awareness gives you more power, freedom, and choice, doesn't it? Right? So yeah, you can learn these things more. You can go back through the webinar or go through self-CPI or whatever it is we're doing. Cause and effect. We talked about this. This is one of our super hypnotic patterns. Personally, I think awareness is a little bit more powerful, but only because you can't even begin to do cause and effect without awareness. Cause and effect is powerful because, A, what does it do? It can make any two things appear to cause one another. In other words, it can make any one thing appear to cause something else, and you get to choose what causes what. If you understand what elements to fill in those blanks, it becomes even more unstoppable. It's also a presupposition. There are layers beneath the surface of the spoken word that your brain has to assume as being literally 100% verifiably true just to make sense of the words I'm speaking. NLP calls that your deep structure. We don't need to know that. We don't need to know how to build the car or how all the moving parts of the engine to know how to turn on the ignition or to put it in drive. So one of the other reasons that this is such a powerful pattern is because it mirrors the structure of internal belief. When you say things in cause and effect terms, it comes across as a belief. And we're taught, especially now in this day and age, not to openly challenge other people's beliefs. It's considered rude. You'll be accused of hate speech or some other political incorrect bullshit. Okay? But it engages a process we call pseudo logic. These things will appear to have some kind of structural causal A causes B relationship when in fact they don't. But if we speak in this structure, if you speak in this structure, everything you say will have the same level of belief and conviction or of veracity as a belief or something you really believe you're in. Either just the structure will cause it. If you have the emotional side and the rapport side down, it's even more powerful. Remember, everything we covered on the state control and rapport is empowering. It's the fuel that makes these practically irresistible structures unstoppable. They really, really are. You have to play with it to really appreciate it. So all beliefs are stated in cause and effect terms. Anything stated using this structure tends to be taken as a belief. We can use it to install direct suggestions into the mind of the subject. We tend to accept them as completely true, even when they seem completely illogical. They often go unchallenged and they create compliance, especially if you use the king of the words in the cause and effect category, which is because. Hold on a second. I went up instead of down. Okay. Now, how do we use a cause and effect language pattern? Well, the first thing we do before we get into this, is we have to understand a concept that's bandied, a term that's thrown around a lot in the NLP and hypnosis world called pacing. Pacing is jargon, and I hate jargon, but we have to talk about it here just so we can understand it. A pace can be done in one of two ways. To pace something is to become like it. So in our earlier example, when you were using gross physiology and taking on the basic physiology of somebody who you want to connect with, you were pacing how they were standing. You were pacing their posture. You were pacing their breathing. You were trying to become as much like them as possible. In the context of rapport, that's what pacing is. In the context of hypnotic languaging, pacing something is to call attention to, in the person's mind, to something that is true, a truism. A truism can be something that we can verify through our five senses, something we can see, something we can hear, something we can feel, something we can taste, something we can smell, or something we can just become aware of internally. So if for example, if I say, as you sit there watching me on the screen or reading the words on the PowerPoint, listening to my words, sitting in the chair, having certain thoughts, maybe even hearing my voice inside your head. As you look back on that sequence of events, the first few things I named were things that were coming in through your five senses, something you could see, something you could hear, something you could feel. And then I directed your attention inside by saying, and you're having certain thoughts. The first thing that happened when I said, and you're having certain thoughts, is that your awareness, the direction of your awareness filter went from external to internal. And the moment you either asked yourself, am I having certain thoughts? Or you heard my voice in your head, you validated that it was true. Is that everybody's experience? Okay. If you can't see the PowerPoint, that's fine. Did you hear my words? Okay. What we did there was simply call your attention to truisms, things that are verifiably true externally or internally, right? So when you want to create a hypnotically compelling, practically irresistible cause and effect statement, the first part, the X that you have to plug in, must be a pace. Your X must be a pace. It must be something that the listener or the reader can verify through their awareness as being true. Then you insert this little arrow here is representative of the words that go into this category. The Y is what we call a lead. The lead is anything you want them, the X, to appear to cause. In other words, anything you want them to believe or experience or do. Does that make sense? Please type in the box if it makes sense. Okay, so remember, the first part must always be true. The second part is your pattern word. Okay, example. I'm glad you asked, Grant. Okay, let's go back. I know some of you say you can't see the PowerPoint. Maybe what I'll do is I'll type a few into the chat box that are examples here. So here's one. Simply viewing this video automatically gives you the power to use your hypnotic language skills more powerfully. I'll say it 3 times. Simply viewing this video automatically gives you the power to use your hypnotic language skills more powerfully. Simply viewing this video automatically gives you the power to use your hypnotic language skills more powerfully. Where's our pace in this? In fact, let me do this. If you can't see the PowerPoint, this is going to go by fast. Here it is in the chat. That's right, viewing the vid. Can you verify that you watched the video? The moment your neurology verifies the truth of viewing the video, your brain automatically accepts every part of the rest of the sentence as being true. You don't even think to challenge it, right? Because I've already installed it in you and it doesn't matter what you think now anyway, let's go back and look at that statement and ask ourselves a question. I'm going to read it again. Simply viewing this video automatically gives you the power to use your hypnotic languages skills more powerfully. Let me ask you a question. How? How does simply viewing this video automatically cause you to do anything? How does it automatically give you any kind of power at all? Answer, if you can. Doesn't matter. You're right, it doesn't, because the effect is the same. You've got the mojo. My face is the pace. That's right. You see, the sentence sounds perfectly normal, perfectly plausible, perfectly rational, doesn't it? And yet, how does viewing a video automatically give you any kind of power? Now, what you may notice when you ask that question, your brain starts to generate a rationale for why that could be true. That's pseudo-logic. There actually is, for those of you who are logisticians, there is no true logical, sequential cause and effect relationship here. It's completely manufactured. There's no actual truth to it except the fact that it actually does install the ability to use hypnotic language powers, skills into you more fully. Okay? But that's what I mean. Usually when I'm teaching this in class, I use ridiculous, really way out examples to create cognitive dissonance in the students to show how far you can push this. Now these are pretty classic, rather vanilla statements that you would normally give. They're not things like, the very fact that the walls of my office are beige causes all of my clients to begin to lose weight faster, because beige is a naturally relaxing color. And being that beige is a naturally relaxing color, people go into trance deeper, faster. So when they come for me to lose weight, they get deeper, more lasting effects because they're able to relax more fully and completely and take my words in and do what I say. Doesn't that make sense? Please tell the giraffe story. Painting my walls beige. But again, once again, think of how. How the hell does the color of a wall make anybody lose weight? The more you oscillate back and forth between things that are sensorially and verifiably true, use the cause and effect word, and go back to a lead, the more rapidly they go into a powerful state of trance, and you can't even remember what I said. Can you guys remember the exact words I used? I guarantee you can't, because one of the byproducts of hypnotic language is spontaneous amnesia. You get the message, you lose the words. Yeah, you got beige equals weight loss. See how everything in the middle kind of got lost, didn't it, Lori? But you know it's there, right? Guys will go to this local store and start buying all kinds of beige clothes. When I see you at the seminars and stuff, you'll all be wearing beige shirts and skirts and stuff like that. Like, oh no, I went too far. Okay. So let's look at the second example in this category. Hold on. As you sit there, easily absorbing this material, your inner mind is already finding new ways to use this information. And that feels really good, doesn't it? I'll read it again. As you sit there easily absorbing this material, your inner mind is already finding new ways to use this information, and that feels really good, doesn't it? As you sit there easily absorbing this material, your inner mind is already finding new ways to use this information, and that feels really good, doesn't it? I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste this into the chat for you so you have it. There you go. So it's in the chat. It may go by pretty quick, but if you can find it and cut and paste it, you can study it if you can't see the what do you do when someone calls BS on you? It depends on how they're doing it. Most of the times they don't, especially if you've done your rapport work and you've linked to their criteria and values. Remember, the criteria and values question is what's important about. When you read this text, you will immediately understand everything that David said, and you will be able to use this information in a productive and mind-bending way, and that feels good, doesn't it? Jackie, perfect. That was structurally perfect. You could use that as marketing copy. You could use it as a powerful hypnotic suggestion to program people to use hypnotic language more powerfully each and every time they hear it or think about it. Get it? If you want, type in a few cause and effect statements that would program somebody to use these language patterns more effectively, or take the next training or whatever it is they want to do to take your information, take your knowledge base further. Just type them in. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go back over and look at them later. I'll give you feedback if I have time. Okay. Let's go to the next one, cause and effect. Okay. Now, once again, your X is always true. Your arrow is always one of the words in this pattern category. Your Y is always what you want them to see, believe, feel, hear, do, or pay attention to. Okay. Okay. Complex equivalence. Now, this is the one that sometimes confuses people a little bit. The complex equivalence language pattern is very, very similar to cause and effect. It's very similar to cause and effect, except for one thing, that in the complex equivalence pattern, X does not cause Y anymore. In a complex equivalence pattern, X means Y. In other words, the truism and the lead mean the same thing. Now, to use a very simple, basic example, every time you hear somebody say time is money, the is an example of the complex equivalence category where one thing is the same as another thing. I tell a story in my classes about the primary fundamental linguistic difference in the genders. Now, this is, again, without seeking to offend anyone, I'm an equal opportunity hater, so I will make fun of everyone equally. I have found in my workings with people of both genders that male thinking is primarily in the cause and effect language structure. In other words, a man sees something and he does something because of it. And that doesn't mean women don't use it, but the way they relate to the world is cause effect. I eat it, I see food, I kill it, I eat it. I see a gorgeous woman, I approach and attempt mating processes. We're very problem solution. Doesn't mean men don't make meaning. It doesn't mean that they don't use complex equivalence. They do, but they don't necessarily relate to the world as in that structure as the primary. Women, however, do, and a lot of it is because of how they've evolved. Women evolved in groups. Women evolved while we were out hunting mastodons and slaying dinosaurs, trying to bring food home without being food ourselves, finding problems to solve. The women in the village, in most cases, were left to their own devices. They were left on their own to raise children, to take care of the village, to take care of one another. They had to learn to depend on one another. They had to learn how to connect with one another, to rely on one another for survival. And they had to figure out how to keep the man from running off with a hot chick in the next village, or to come home at night. So as a result of all these things, because a woman originally was denied the ability to be strong in the survival category, she developed into the sexuality and relationship category. She developed a very powerful, women are very strong reproductively, men are very strong in terms of rote survival. And those two things really had a major impact on how we've evolved in terms of how we relate to one another. Because women had to rely on each other, they had to figure out very, very quickly who they could rely upon, who they couldn't. They had to figure out who was a frenemy and who wasn't, and how to keep people that were useful around. Because of that need, because of that necessity, they developed very, very a complex social radar. They didn't start looking at cause and effect. They started to be able to discern. They wanted to know what a particular phraseology or behavior meant in terms of what that other person was coming from. They wanted to know the significance of what you said in terms of what it means to them. And so women began to relate to the world in terms of meaning. So when you come home from a hard day at the office and you start tell them about why you were late because the boss was a dick, there was a traffic accident, late customers, she doesn't care. What she's concerning herself with first is what being late means to her, what being late is to her. In other words, let me use this example. I think that a story will just clarify this. Let's say that, going back, using this example of lateness, let's say that you have a kid. His name is Jack. Now, if you're male, you'll relate to that part. If you're female, you'll relate to the other part. So you're at work. Jack's got a soccer game at 4:30. And you've promised Jack and your wife that you will be at Jack's soccer game because Jack idolizes his dad. He wants his dad to see him win the game. And so you have every intention of being at Jack's soccer game. But did you ever have one of those days when Murphy says, "Not today, motherfucker," right? You know what I'm talking about? Everything that could go wrong goes wrong. You get to the car, there's a flat tire. You get to work late. You get to work late because you had to fix the flat. Every customer you have from that day on, you have one problem after another. Your boss makes you work late. Finally, 4:15, 4:25 rolls around. You finally make it to your car. Traffic's a bitch. 45 minutes in traffic. 4:45 or a quarter to 6 rather, you roll into that soccer game. You run up to your wife. You look her in the eyes. True remorse in your face. You say, "Honey, I am so sorry. The car broke down. I was late to work. There was one problem after another, problem customers. The boss made me work late. I got here. I tried to get here faster. I hit 45 minutes. That's why I'm late for Jack's soccer game. I'm so sorry." The wife looks at you with that look, and she says, "If you'd loved your son, you'd have been here." Anybody ever have a similar experience like this? I'll sound out another one that's a complex equivalence in a minute, but anybody? You see, cause and effect matters. But in the world of complex equivalence, not being at Jack's soccer game is the same as not loving Jack. Or in the corollary to that, of course, is being at Jack's soccer game means you love your son. If you guys understand this, ladies, both genders need to understand this. Gentlemen, when you come home from a hard day at work, remember something. Everything you say and everything you do means something to them. And that's what they're responding to first. If you've ever had a discussion with a woman, or you've heard women talking to one another and they say, "He just doesn't get it. He doesn't get me." This is part of that. You're trying to speak in cause and effect terms. She's processing in complex equivalence. You're speaking apples. She's reading oranges. And ladies, the same is true for you too. We're far simpler than you are. When we were late for Jack's soccer game, it was simply a cause and effect thing. The traffic was bad. The car couldn't go through solid objects. Therefore, we couldn't get to Jack's soccer game on time. It doesn't mean we don't love our children, right? If we accidentally leave the toilet lid seat up, leave the cap off the toothpaste, or forget to take out the trash, it's because we forgot to take out the fucking trash. It's because we forgot. It's not because we disrespect the domestic haven we've built together, right? Well, one of my old former friends used to make a joke along the same lines. Usually at the expense of the women, I guess, but it could be just as powerful. Two people are getting ready for bed at night, husband and wife. Wife looks over at her husband, says, I'm really thirsty. Husband gets up, gets a glass of water, comes in, hands it to her. Wife looks at the glass of water and says, you don't get it. Says, I don't want that. Husband looks at her like, what? He goes, I don't want a glass of water. I want you to understand. I want you to look at me and say, honey, I understand. I too have once been thirsty. When women get to, I know I'm going to get shit for that one, but that's a, oh, absolutely. I'm like I say, cause and effect and complex equivalence are fundamental filters in our nervous system because they're fundamentally in our nervous system. They're fundamental building blocks of our language. But look at the behavior in men, look at what they focus on and how they deal with things. Look at what the genders do. Now, if you don't agree with it, that's fine. It's just an observation on my part. But I guarantee you, gentlemen, if you start relating to your wife from the perspective of asking yourself when you're about to say or do something, asking yourself this one question: what meaning will she derive from what I'm about to say or do? What is what I'm about to say or do going to mean to her? And if you use that, your life will get a whole lot easier. Ladies, if you stop for a moment and realize we're simply not that complicated, stop overthinking it. You'll save yourself a lot of heartache. We're just not as complex as you are, ladies. But if you understand languaging, you can start to smooth those things out. Okay? Yeah, ask her what she means. Delve into the meaning of things. Discuss what things mean to you. Believe me, they want you to do that. That's what women do when they get together. They tell stories and they tell them what it means. Right? All right. Is this good or good so far? Excellent. Now, I don't know how many of you can connect through like Facebook or whatever, but one of the best ways to practice this is just to text each other using these structures. The more you can write them the more you can express them in any way, shape, or form. You got to have an outcome. You got to start with something you want them to say, think, or do. But once you understand outcome-driven languaging, you can practice this with each other through chat rooms, through texting, of course, through voicemail and video. But the more you write these patterns out over and over again, the more you'll kinesthetically hardwire them into your neurology. And as you kinesthetically hardwire them into your neurology, you'll find yourself speaking them more rapidly and fluidly in normal everyday conversations. And people will just start to do what you say. They'll follow the instructions and obey the commands. Okay? So that's complex equivalence. Words in this category. Let's see if Brandon included them. Nope. Oh, wait. Oh, Brandon did not include the words. All right. So if that's true, let me give you some words in this category. I'm going to create. Let's do this. All right. Write these down or type them down. I'm going to dictate them relatively quick. Because, and, as, makes, triggers, allows, causes. Got them? Yeah, if you have the CPI manual, then these are in there, okay? They're just examples. There's thousands of words that fill this category. Because, causes, and, as, allows, makes, triggers, forces, creates, generates. Type one or two for each of you into the chat box so everybody has a rich lexicon of them. Take these words and stick them between the X and the Y, create your language patterns. You'll have the second most powerful language patterns in your world at your disposal. For the complex equivalence, start with is, means, equates, equals, or equivalence. Again, is, means, causes, equals, equivalent to. These are what we would call complex equivalence words. Get a thesaurus, you'll find thousands of them. Okay? Okay. Let's see what he's got here. Discover how to emotionally charge your language. We've already covered that, believe it or not. Basic state training, state control. Discover the hidden structure. We've done that. Did we jump to the top somehow? I hate PowerPoints. Okay, here we go. How to make anything you say instantly more persuasive. Actually, we've already done that. Authority. Okay, this goes back to the 4 pillars of hypnotic influence. We talked about this when we talked about honest signals. Authority is the king. The more authority you have in a person's world, the more power you have through positional power or taking on the trappings of positional power, the more emotion that's delivered in passion, the more charisma you have, the more rapidly people will bow to your authority. If you have expertise, you have authority. And of course, mastery of conversational dynamics is a form of influence. So authority is the king. When you're perceived as being the authority in someone's world, they simply will do what you say. They will become hyper-suggestible, even if they don't want to. If the authority is high enough, people will simply comply. You've heard me talk about the Milgram experiments in other times, in other places. You could research Stanley Milgram and his experiments. Darren Brown, very famous mentalist, actually replicated these experiments. Bottom line is, people, if when faced with overwhelming authority, people will simply comply no matter how much they don't want to. It's only the really antisocial ones that won't. So the more you can take on the trappings of authority, the more everything we've just covered is magnified. This is a magnifier, an amplifier to the things we've trained you in. In Killer Influence, we go deep dish into all of these. We have a whole chapter on authority tactics. We have a whole chapter on attractivity generation. We have a whole chapter on acquiescence and a whole chapter on affinity. So if you're coming to Killer Influence in January, you'll learn all about that stuff and a whole lot more. Acquiescence. A certain percentage of the population, of any given population, will simply go along because somebody in authority told them to. We call this the acquiescence phenomenon. Now, the interesting thing, one of my mentors used to tell me that a certain population in any given room will be hypnotically suggestible to you just because of the fact that you're a human being with a pulse, breathing the same air that they are. However, who those people will comply to is different from one person. Let's say we have 10 people in a room. I walk in and persons 1, 2, and 3 are hyper suggestible to me. They'll just say or follow along with anything I do. You walk into a room, it might not be the same 3 people who are hyper suggestible to you, who are in the acquiescence mode. It may be persons 8, 9, and 10 who follow your words unquestioningly because there's some kind of pheromonal biochemical resonance between you that just causes people to do that. If you understand state control, if you understand rapport skills, if you understand the scope and the power of the hypnotic language patterns I've just given you, the vast majority of people who will simply do what you say as a byproduct of doing this training will probably jump to about 75%. And that's if you're not that good at it. When you get really good at state control and rapport, it'll go up to 90, 95, 99%. I'm not kidding. Don't believe me. Get good at this stuff. Do the trainings I recommend. Read the materials and go out and play with it. Go out and play with it, and you'll rapidly discover when you start with your state control and your rapport, and you take on the honest signals to enhance that, and you read people properly, people will just do what you tell them to do. They'll believe what you say. They'll do what you want. They'll think the way you want them to think. It's almost scary when you get really good at this, okay? And truthfully, once you get really good at state control and rapport, you don't need much else. But there's a full module that we do on state control, and it's a prerequisite for all our advanced classes, and you need to do that live. Of course, if you can't do live, then get the video courses that are relevant to what you want to do. Affinity. Affinity is, again, a rapport-based phenomena. People like people who are like themselves. If the more similar we are, the more rapidly our nervous systems entrain, and the more I want to keep that connection and take it for as far as I can. In fact, when you give somebody the experience of echoing them properly and tagging their criteria and values, and you've got kinesthetic rapport, you have literally given them the level of connection and mental and physical validation that they've been looking for their entire life. And they will fight tooth and nail to keep it, to preserve it, to build on it. So you got to be careful, right? I want you to go out and I want you to play with this as often as you can. But remember, some people have a huge hole that they're trying to fill. So if you get rapport with the wrong person, you may wind up with a stalker, right? So you remember, I think a very famous Spider-Man once said, with great power comes great responsibility. You're getting the keys to massive power. And I'm aware that some of you already know this and some of you have been using it. If, by the way, if you have been using these things for any length of time and you have a success story or a testimonial where you've used this and maybe you're even surprised how easy it was, type it in the chat room. Let people read them. I'll go back and look at them in a minute, but let people know this shit's for real, right? And let's see what's going on next. All right. So let's review. We've covered state control. We've covered the rapport. We've covered how to test for rapport using the sway test. We've talked about honest signals. We've got two more to cover, and that's the we've talked about influence, obviously. And the four categories of power, and that the measure of influence is the ability to induce mimicry in somebody to some extent. We talked about the fundamental aspect of mimicry, that just taking on somebody's physiology, their posture, their breathing, speaking their exact words, the echo technique, which is the go-to technique for everybody. It's entry level and it's master level at the same time. Will cause people to begin to obey you, to trust you, to believe in you, to like you, and everything else. If you go in, like say you're pitching to venture capitalists, right? You walk in and the first thing that happens is somebody, if you're sitting a certain way and somebody sits the way you do, you've got them. But if you want to induce that, stand or sit the way the rapport leaders of those capitalists are sitting, and you will bump your chances of getting what you want by as much as 30%. Okay? It's that powerful. Just copying sincerely. Remember, you can't think of this as a parlor trick. You can't be half in and half out, dipping your toe in the mimicry water. You've got to have a sincere intention, a sincere desire to connect and understand that human being, and this will engage faster than I'll get out. And even if they catch you doing it, they won't care because it feels so good and it feels so right to do that. Okay? So mimicry, second honest signal. You can gauge who's the leader of a group by how much other people are mimicking them. So it gives you the chance to speed read a group. Right? In our people reading for fun and profit class, we teach you how to go way deeper down that rabbit hole. But again, that's another training for another time. We talked about last two honest signals are so what I want. Mimicry, consistent. I gotta go look. Okay. Well, we'll talk about consistency. Consistency goes to the fluidity with which you express yourself. If you're expressing yourself calmly, rationally, smoothly, deliberately, a lot of inflection, highs and lows, you are exhibiting what we consider the phenomena of consistency. So this goes to not what you're saying or what you're expressing, but how you're expressing it. It's a sign of mental focus. The more focused you are, the more you know your shit, so to speak. The more you're talking about the things you know, you're confident. The more smooth and even and timed your movements, your words, your thoughts are. If your thoughts are unfocused and jarbled, if you're juggling too many things in your mind, your movements become erratic. They become awkward. They become jerky. You see this parodied a lot in sitcoms or movies where they're doing a lot of physical comedy. Is the person who's clumsy or tripped, are they ever confident or sure of themselves? Or do they seem uncertain? Do they seem tentative? Do they seem overly nervous? This is a direct theatrical expression of the phenomena of what we call consistency. Consistency is actually on a spectrum. There's consistency and variability. Let me go back to this so I can see myself. When somebody's consistent, you are more certain, more authoritative, more dominant. So if you're teaching a class, or you're pitching to venture capitalists, or you're in a mediation, you want your energy to be consistent, to have a lot of smooth transitions. Your linguistics should be clear of what we call non-fluencies, the ums, the ahs, the ers. This is a sign of consistency. But there's a spectrum. There's the consistency, and then on the other end is what we call variability. As you move from consistency towards variability, which is the other end of the spectrum, your movements, your voice quality, they become more inconsistent. So let's say you're in a sales call and you're in the fact-finding level of that sales process. You're asking questions. You're trying to figure out what's good for them, what's not. Your voice, you may ask more questions. You may have less, kind of consistent body languaging. Your voice tonality may be a little bit higher, lower. You may have a little bit more upward tonality. This is what we call variability. Variability is useful when we're getting information, when we're acquiring information. When we're transmitting information or influencing or persuading, we want to be more consistent. We want to install confidence and certainty in people. We want to be on the consistency end of the honest signal spectrum. When we want to let people know we're open to change, we're open to having our minds and opinions modified in some way. We want to be more variable. Do you guys get the two ends of the spectrum and why they're both important? Type that in if you do. Okay. This is, again, one of those, it takes a little bit to weaponize. Shall we this way? Let's review. David shall join our WhatsApp group because we are the best humans. You guys are crazy. All right. So when I demonstrate, when I teach, I do my best to hit you on all four channels of the honest signal consistency. I try to hit you with the executive power, with the emotional power, the expertise, and of course the mastery of conversational dynamics. I'm doing that now with the webinar by getting you all to respond and to talk to me. That's what a master of conversational dynamics does. Obviously, when I do things, I kind of, if I ask you to raise your hand or I say yes, I usually wind up raising my hand or doing something. That's an honest signal. I'm using a lot of gestures. This goes to the fourth level of honest signals, which is called activity level. Activity level is a measurement of how into the conversation, how focused into the interaction a person is. When they were observing these four honest signals in the context of speed dating, the key factor in the exchange. Anybody here do dating of any kind or have ever done speed dating? Just real quick. Okay. Well, I'm not a big speed dater, but this is what the study shows. It was always up to the woman to determine if information got exchanged, but the way that both parties influenced wound up exchanging information was based on the measurement of the activity level. If as two people were talking in that 5-minute conversation, and by the way, these results were quantified with the volume turned off and the dialogue as being non-existent. So when a person has a lot of gestures, they're animated, they're into it, they're out of it, there's a lot of movement, and that indicates focus of attention. What you have is a high activity level. If you've got someone who's just kind of sitting back, this is not a great level of activity. Does that make sense? This is boring communication 101. This is somebody who is not going to exchange information with you, or that you're going to want to exchange information with. In every instance where there was a high level of activity on the part of the female, both parties exchanged information. Okay, so if you got somebody who's really into the conversation, they're animated, they're interactive, there's hand gestures. outside, without being spastic, obviously. When you've got a high level of activity, you've got a high level of interest and internal focus and absorption in the conversation. Therefore, any request to take it to the next level, to take that connection further, is far more likely to succeed. When you see people doing that, you can tell they're into each other. Oh, they're trying to hypnotize me to join WhatsApp. You guys I've created monsters. Okay, so that's all 4 honest signals. Loop closed, right? Yes? Yes or yes? Leon's got this fascination with squirrels. So this brings us to a question. And it's one I often ask people. If I could teach you, if I could show you the fast track to going from interesting information to unstoppable persuasion transformation, if I could show you a way to do that in the quickest, easiest, most affordable way possible, would you be interested in that? Would it be okay to show you about it? Yes or yes? Cool. Excellent. So I thought about this for a while. Again, I'm going to be upfront with you. My bias is get off your ass, get on a plane, a train, take the bus, hitchhike, whatever you got to do, and get to our live events. If you really want to get a full immersion into this into this material, I want you to come to a live event. Right? Now, if you're not sure what live event, like maybe you're a special kind of stupid like me that spends most of their day sitting in a room helping other people shovel their shit. That's a noble calling, but it's not one that's for everybody, especially with the work I do, which is terminal and emotional illness. My specialty here at the clinic is physiological illness that has as its roots repressed emotion. So I get like I make a joke that, I also do weight loss. The truth is I don't. I get like 1 or 2 weight loss clients a year, and it's almost always a byproduct of something else. It's almost always a result of some kind of trauma, right? I do a lot of trauma work. I work with a lot of chronic and terminal illness on occasion here too, autoimmune, things like that. Almost always has repressed memory as its problem. So when I talk about these things, I'm talking about these not just from the perspective of a retired, pickup artist or the top trainer in the world in NLP. And by the way, thank you for voting me the number 2 guy. The only person that beat me was Richard Bandler. And you know what? I'm good with that. So I'm grateful for that. But I also know that a lot of you are halfway around the world. Some of you are watching this freaking webinar at 4 o'clock in the morning. My God. Thank you so much for that. And I know how hard it is, to get to these live events. And so like I said before, if you can't get to the live events, then the next best thing is a video process, to distance learning. And so I sat back and I was like, okay, if that's how it is, what can I put together? What can I recommend for people that will give them the biggest persuasion bang in the shortest amount of time possible? How can I best replicate the live experience and get you fully immersed in these systems so that you can get your life on track the way you want it? Because you want things. There's certain things you want that you came on this webinar to get. And I'm committed to helping you get that. So I sat down and I looked at everything that I've done, everything I've that's both been put out there as a product, as well as things that haven't been released yet that are in some form of post-production or planned. We have some events coming up in Las Vegas very shortly that have never been taught before. The material's never been released to anyone anywhere in that way. I looked at all of it and I said to myself, okay, what do they need? What do they need? And I started going through and putting together a plan. So here's my plan. I'm going to go through it. Bear with me. Again, stick to the end of the webinar, because after we've gone through this and we've shown you where to go next and what to do, we're going to come back and we're going to do an installation. We're going to take all of these skills that we've explored and practiced to some degree, and we're going to do a deep installation so that you can embody these skills more fully and rapidly. Okay, so let's look at what we got. First thing I thought about was hold on a second. Stealth CPI. Stealth CPI is a 17 DVD quality video home study course. It's now available fully digitally. It normally retails for around $19.97 to $14.97, depending on the price that we're offering. So I looked at that. That's going to give you the biggest foundation. It's going to give you the echo technique, all the state control and rapport drills, the universal persuasion protocol, criteria and values elicitation. It's going to teach you the 7 most powerful language patterns that exist. It's going to give you the ability to tap into the person's neurology in any way, fully and completely, and link it to you. You're going to learn how to send emotions back and forth and use that emotional amplitude to project and empower your words. So you're going to find just this course has been known to up people's conversion rates for sales and marketing by as much as 40%. We're going to teach you embedded commands. We're going to teach you binds. We're going to teach you the whole spectrum of what we call level 1 CPI, which has stood the test of time. It's the simplest, easiest, most fastest, effective way to hypnotize people with or without them knowing it, simply by talking to them in a way that they're pre-designed or predetermined to think. Normal retail value for that is $1,997. We're going to add to that our original CPI course. This was the original Conversational, Persuasion, and Influence course. The Stealth CPI course was done 7 or 8 years after this course. This was the original 2-day seminar that I taught to about 40 aspiring hypnotists when I was about 20 or 30 pounds heavier. I was teaching hypnotists my approach to conversational language. Very, very powerful. There's some things in this particular course that we didn't teach the same way in Stealth CPI. So it's an extra way to see how things have evolved and fill in certain skill sets. Our normal value for that is $397. You add that to the $1,997 value of this package, you're looking at a total of $2,394 worth of stuff. But we're not done yet. We're also going to give you the Stealth Selling Secrets program. Now, this program, I'm really proud of this. This was originally not a standalone product. This was originally taught as a 3 or 4 hour evening session for the attendees of our Stealth CPI program. This was co-taught with one of a great friend of mine and a colleague, James Situ. James is what I call a corporate seduction specialist. His job is to actually call up CEOs of Fortune 100 and 500 companies and literally seduce them from leaving that company to come to the company that he's representing. And so he's amazing at getting past gatekeepers. He's amazing at creating powerful rapport and cold calling people. And he utilizes NLP, deep level rapport skills that you'll learn in Stealth CPI, and deep frame control and criterion values elicitations to influence people for his business. So I asked him to come in and co-teach this with me. In fact, we had one gentleman in the audience who was a pharmaceutical salesman, and he just could not wrap his head around presenting in any way other than like a features and benefits presentation, in memorizing how to handle objections and on all those things. And here's the interesting part. When you understand criteria and values and everything we talked about in this webinar, you won't get objections most of the time. In fact, people will more often than not simply ask you to buy the product, or they will simply go along when you say it's time to buy the product. It's really cool. But the interesting thing about what you'll see in this training, in this Stealth Selling Secrets, is not only how to deeply use criteria and values and frame control, but we actually had to use the technology on this pharmaceutical salesman because he just refused to believe. Oops, sorry about that. He just refused to believe that this was true. So we actually nailed him with criteria and values tactics to get him to acquiesce and agree that this was something that worked. And he drank the Kool-Aid. We heard from him a few months later. He had been downsized out of his existing company. He had applied to, and he had the worst job karma I'd ever seen. And it's relevant here because he got hired by another company, was doing great. That company went through an organization. He was laid off again. He used the exact same process he learned in Stealth Selling Secrets to get another job in less than a week. He became such an advocate of this process that he decided to get out of pharmaceutical sales completely and become a coach, because he knew if it didn't work, he could go get a job like that. And he's actually doing a lot more NLP and hypnosis and really making a difference in people's lives. So this is you'll get to see the beginnings of that process. And he came back several times later, and he would he would actually teach other people why this is such a powerful process. So as an adjunct to the Stealth CPI, the Stealth Selling Secrets program, and it can stand alone if you have some of our other courses, but if you don't, this is one that if you want to make more money as a coach, as a mediator, as a negotiator, if you need to get people to want your products and services, and you want to get into their hearts and find out what more emotionally motivates them, this is the one course that makes this entire course, this entire bundle worth it. But we're not going to stop there. We retail that for around $297. If you add that to what we've already added to the package, you're looking at $2,691. But we're not going to stop there because, like I said, this is a total immersion package. We're also going to include, remember I mentioned this earlier, people reading for fun and profit. We're going to go deep into how to speed read people. This is where you can take what you've learned about honest signals, about state control, about rapport, and speed read the level of trust, activity, influence, dominance. You're going to learn how to look at couples and know who's into who, what to do to get the person more into you. This was a 2 or 3 day intensive that we taught, and as a way to really get inside people's heads from a distance, to understand the rapport continuum, to figure out when people are lying to you, how to get control of groups and things like that. This is a must-have. So once again, this also retails for $297. And as you can see, they're both very, very powerful aspects of the whole thing we've talked about. Stealth CPI and CPI being the core, the Stealth Selling Secrets and the people reading for fun and profit being the application drill down, the specific ways to utilize this material powerfully. Of course, we're going to include Money Magnet Mastery. Money Magnet Mastery is a lot more. It does talk about criterion values, but it's a lot more about the mindset of abundance, how to program your mind to zero in and hone in on ways to make more money powerfully utilizing the technology. So it's going to have a strong inner game component. It's also going to teach you, again, it's going to review anchoring, criterion values, elicitation, different ways to program your mind and body to become more successful as a salesperson using this technology. Okay, total retail value for that is $97. We're also going to add, for those of you who are like me, interested in all the different ways you can influence people, we're going to include a copy of our NLP for Profit Copywriting Secrets course. In case you didn't know, next to actors, the most powerful hypnotists on the planet in the written word are direct response copywriters. These people, their entire craft is about learning how, through the written word, to reach into people's minds and hearts and bodies, find out what they most want and are willing to pay for, and get them to to voluntarily, quickly reach into your wallet, take out your credit card, and buy what's being sold to you, what's being offered to you. And they learn that craft in a time and a place when the internet didn't exist, when it was through holding a piece of paper in your hand, and they had to call. There were so many things that could have gone wrong in that process. So they learned how to be really successful through the written word. If you have Stealth CPI and you understand hypnotic languaging, if you understand how to read people, both how to step inside and target their criteria and values and all these other things, you know how to do Stealth Selling Secrets, and you know how to translate that to the written word, you can create blog posts and articles and direct response copy that will just reach into the hearts and minds of people, tap into the things they want and desire most, and link it to your product or service so that they just want to do business and get your products by default. It's one of the most, and in emails, this is exceptionally powerful. If you like my emails, if you like my videos, they're a direct result of the things I've learned from all these different places. So once again, we're adding that to the mix. It builds on and it gives you a lens to focus the power of Stealth CPI and CPI to a direction and an application where you can make more money, be more successful, and write copy, whether it's for a proposal to venture capitalists, to a charity, to ask for people to fund your Patreon accounts or whatever. The ability to translate hypnotic skills into the written word is a skill set that will only help you for the rest of your life. And if that's something that interests you, grab this entire package. If we add all that, the $1,997 for Stealth CPI, Conversational, Persuasion, and Influence, $397 value, Stealth Selling Secrets, $297 value, People Reading for Fun and Profit, $297 value, Money Magnet Mastery, $97, NLP for profit copyright. I love this course. I'm probably going to do a 2 or 3 day live event with this. So if you're interested in that, this is a good primer. Total value for this package, guys, $3,182, and it's a deep total immersion. But we're not going to stop there. At least I don't think so. We're going to include something that I find interesting, which goes hand in hand with People Reading for Fun and Profit. This is called Lie to Me If You Dare. At some point, somewhere, somehow, today and tomorrow, and for the rest of your life, some motherfucker somewhere is going to lie to you. It might even be you. The important thing to remember is the ability to catch and detect lies is a survival skill. Remember I said earlier, the worst of the bad people out there have spent a lot of time, energy, and effort looking like good people. This is one of the fastest, most direct, easiest, and user-friendly ways to get the skills of lie detection under your belt and in your hands so that you can protect yourself and your family from people who are going to take advantage of you. Sorry, every time I think I go there. Every time I think about the early parts of my life, I can just remember how I was the target of one type of deception or manipulation after another, and I had to develop these skills. Really, remember, none of this stuff I developed for you initially. I developed them for me to make my life easier. And I had to shovel a lot of shit to do it, but I developed this skill to survive. And I found out later on that like me, other people needed these skills and they could benefit from it. So that's why I'm including it in this package. I hope you never have to use the skills of lie detection. I really don't. But if you do, it's nice to have those. The biggest problem that people have when it comes to catching lies is they don't actually want to believe what the evidence tells them. That's the biggest challenge. They don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe someone would actually lie to them. So you don't always have to call somebody when you know somebody's lying to you. You don't have to call them on it, but it does allow you to be prepared. And that's why I like these kinds of skills. I don't always call people on when I know they're lying. I let them think they got away with it, and then I just make my contingencies based on it. That's a more useful way to utilize these skills. So I've included that in the course here. So if you're looking at that, we're looking at a total value now. That's $97 on its own. You're looking at a total value of $3,279 for this complete immersion package. In terms of personal protection, influence, persuasion, and self-defense, it's a good one. So if you look at all of it, you're looking at Stealth CPI, $1,997, Conversational, Persuasion, and Influence, $397 value, Stealth Selling Secrets, $297 retail, People Reading for Fun and Profit, value $297, Money Magnet Mastery, $97, NLP for profit. Again, these are all things that you need to round out your persuasion arsenal and to really prepare you to go out and make your dreams come true. Total value, if you were to buy it on the website today without a coupon code of any kind, $3,297. But I'm not going to make you pay $3,297. In fact, I want you to have this course. I want you to use it. I want you to make 100 times what you're going to invest in this tuition. Okay, I'm not going to charge you $1,000 or $1,967. I'm not going to charge you $1,097. Although I can tell you right now, this will give, if you put these skills into operation, it's not out of the ballpark for you to pull down 6 figures a year. I did it for years utilizing these skills without teaching them to anybody. And then once I started teaching this stuff, and people started doing it, not only did their revenue, they bought more products, so my revenue goes up. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy like that. If you want to get it today, all this stuff, $3,297 worth of amazing stuff. If you have any pieces of this, and by the way, if you do have pieces of this, find something of a similar price point, and I'll substitute it for you. Okay? If it's of a similar price point, and you already have something here, and you want to take advantage of this amazing special offer of $797 for all this stuff, you could just go to the link to your left there and click the link. You'll get the entire package today, downloadable, accessible right from your NLP Power members account for $797. $797. And you know what? For the next, Brandon doesn't know I'm going to do this. For the next 20 people only that enroll today on this webinar, I am going to throw in, like I remember I told you yesterday I finished Stealth CPI Level 2, Weapons of Mass Instruction, how to tell compelling stories and narratives and metaphors. I am going to give you full, complete, permanent access to all of the level 2 training that we conducted yesterday. We're going to give you access to the top secret Facebook group. You'll be able to log in. You'll be able to watch all the videos, read all the manuals, listen to all the examples, and learn how to tell irresistible stories. You'll learn the 6 types of stories you must tell. You'll learn how to do conversational connection through personal story and metaphor. You'll learn how to remove the resistance to your persuasion through the process of Omega stories and Omega strategies. He doesn't know I'm doing this. It's a full 3-day training along with all the downloads and everything else, and some top secret stuff you'll see me actually break down the hidden NLP and language patterns of one of the most famous public speakers and pitchmen out there, a guy who pulls in millions and millions and millions of dollars utilizing the exact skills I'm teaching you. You will see what it looks like in action for real on people who don't know it's happening. You'll see me literally go through it step by step, deconstructing each piece, showing you how what he's doing is directly applicable to what you've learned so that you can model it and take it in whatever direction you want. I'm going to give that to you for the next 20 people who sign up today on this webinar right now for the $797 webinar special offer. I'm going to do that for you. Okay? That's, again, and if you're not interested, that's fine. I get it. Some people just aren't ready. But if you know you're ready for this information, click the link and let's rock it. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to go back to the chat room. I'm going to field some questions. I may give you guys a 5 or 10 minute potty break. And when we come back, what I'd like to do is I'd like to do a short induction to hardwire these skills into your neurology. Would that be okay? Okay, cool. All right. Hold on a second. Some of your questions are going so fast I can't process them. Yeah, I tell you, that's probably a good idea. Let's do this while you guys are getting your package and stuff like that. And if for those of you who do the 20, the 20 who get into the level 2, we'll do a private chat together on that Facebook group, and we'll do some coaching and stuff like that. Maybe once or twice, just to make sure you're clear. We'll do some live one-on-one stuff. Would that be okay? Okay. Let's take a 10-minute potty break. I'm going to run to the restroom, clear my bladder so that we're all free and clear. And then it's 9:07 now where I am. So at 9:17 p.m., we'll come back. We'll do our induction. Hopefully by then you guys will have all your okay. We'll have yourselves all processed out. Brandon can help you in the chat room while I'm going. All right, go potty. We'll talk to you in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Start with start with stealth. I'm going to type this in there just in case you guys don't miss. Start with stealth CPI, Danny. Start with stealth CPI because that's the core, the modern, updated foundation, and then go back and review CPI 1 just to see how they've changed. And then from there, I would look at stealth selling secrets. I would is the order I would recommend is pretty close to what we have them in the webinar. Start with stealth CPI. Oops, my spelling sucks. Apparently, my computer's processing too much stuff. So start with stealth CPI, review CPI 2005 just to see how they've changed. Stealth CPI is a more modernized version because at that time, I was still largely, most of my students were largely in the hypnosis world or the attraction seduction world, but largely the hypnosis world. So there's a little bit more leaning towards that clinical side of things. The stealth CPI is much more geared towards real world business and social and relationship applications. Not that you can't use this stuff in pretty much any form of therapeutic or coaching environment, but that's one of the primary differences. It's very streamlined. So that's definitely do stealth first, then 2005 second, follow that up with stealth selling secrets. In fact, let me change that. I would actually, what I would actually do, since we want to get off to a really fast start, do stealth CPI, stealth selling secrets. Then CPI. And then I would probably spend some time on people reading. I find amongst persuaders, the biggest deficit isn't actually in their ability to persuade, or the biggest deficit actually isn't in the persuasion techniques they know, in their ability to figure out if what they're doing is working the right way or not. In fact, in my first course that I ever created, that ever actually got me into the internet marketing space, it's called Secret Orgasm Tips. It was a course that taught men how to be any woman's ideal lover the very first time they were together before they even kissed or had sex. It was all about understanding how people project their internal maps onto everyone else. A woman, like, you know, and it works equally well for a woman to use on a man. The biggest thing with that is that men are really simple. And one of the things that the Secret Orgasm Tips taught a man how to do was how to perfectly match any woman's ideal lover template. It taught people that every person in the world has a criteria and value that is based around what is the perfect kiss, the perfect place to touch, the perfect order and sequence to touch, things like that. And so that entire course was about teaching men how to do that, how to perfectly match those templates. And people reading is about the same thing. It's about learning how to read people, to understand them. In that course, I told the people that's at the biggest element that makes any and all form of attraction or enticement, think of it as seduction or marketing or sales, successful, is not the persuasion techniques themselves. It's the ability to determine through observation, listening, perception, if what you're doing is actually having the effect that you're going for. That's the secret to making any form of influence work. And it's the one place I see over and over and over again that the vast majority of people are lacking. So we're creating, at NLP Power, we're creating an entire training system of powerful, easy to learn, user-friendly, proven, real-world, practical people reading stuff that you can just put to work right away. And the People Reading for Fun and Profit course is really kind of the entry point to that, to really just diving into the secrets of nonverbal communication. Because remember, the most powerful influencers we have aren't linguistic; they're nonverbal. right? Your tonality, your tempo, your body posture, orientation, your activity level, your dominance, your mimicry. These are all not linguistic phenomena. They're the things we, as human beings, as a species, we develop first. And it's your ability, once you have the language part handled and you have the complete system in your pocket, to tap into those factors and read them and know if you can calibrate if what you're doing is having the desired effect. That makes the biggest difference. In fact, the more you know about the person you're seeking to influence, the less you have to do. And that's what being a master influencer, master of hypnotic influence or persuasion or whatever is really all about. It's about paying attention and knowing and being able to understand what you're paying attention to and what it means. So that's the order: stealth CPI, stealth selling secrets. Follow that up with the original CPI 6-hour course. Supplement it with people reading for fun and profit. And then if you need some more mindset stuff, jump into Money Magnet Mastery. And then if you want to go deeper down the body language rabbit hole, jump into Lie to Me. If the full title is Lie to Me If You Dare, in the art of deception detection. So that would be the order that I would recommend you take them in. Once again, if there's if you want the package, and I recommend it, but you already have one of the products that we've listed there, then just let us know. Find something in our catalog of a similar price point. We'll swap it out for you. Not a problem. Just let us know. I have a full-time assistant now, believe it or not, that can actually help you. If I can't help you, or Nikara, that's her name, can't help you, then Brandon is our website god. He is the man behind the magic, so to speak. He's more than happy to get you set up through the NLP Power website. Okay. I promise you one thing too, that I will go back through the entire chat sequence of this webinar, and as soon as I can, as much as I can, in the time I have, I promise I will do my best to respond to every question, especially if it happens more than once. And for those of you who jump on this offer, you're going to get the private class with me. We'll give you access to the Facebook group. You can start binge watching that entire 3-day training on story and metaphor. But don't watch the training until after you've watched CPI, Stealth 1 CPI. Okay? It's an advanced class. There's a lot of references in that level 2 class to the level 1 material. And when you go through the Stealth CPI material, make sure you frickin' do the drills and you practice with as many live human beings as you can. Because that's the one thing I can't control, is how, what you do once you have the course, right? So get the course, do the drills, do the skills. If you have questions, and you're one of the 20 that comes in, you can post the questions about that course material in the chat room we're going to give you access to, and we'll go ahead and answer those for you. But that will be a secret group. It will not be available like our NLP Power Mastermind group is, which if you want that, interested in that, we can tell you about those later. But it's pretty powerful stuff. So I look forward to working with all of you guys. I hope that answers your question. Are you guys ready to trance out? Yes or yes? Cool. What about, I saw something about vibrational influence. We have 2 vibrational influence classes coming up. One is in November. In fact, is there a place to upload, Brandon? I don't know, because this is your webinar thing. Is there a place to upload a file to this chat room? All right. Well, somebody's asking about a giraffe. Okay. So what we'll do is, for those of you who want to know about upcoming classes and things like that, we have an events calendar on the NLP Power website, but we also, we just added a whole bunch of new trainings for 2018, 2019. So coming up in September, we have real world regression. If you're into hypnotherapy and you want to work with terminally ill patients and real high levels of trauma, things like that. Oh yeah, there is. At the time you asked, she didn't have it on the calendar. The vibrational influence is scheduled for November of 2018. Specifically, if I'm not mistaken, November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2018. I don't know if she's updated the calendar yet. We just finalized that last night, so I'm not surprised. So the vibrational influence, November 2nd through the 4th, 2018. But you can't get into vibrational influence unless you've been through the CPI live training or Killer Influence live training. Okay? It's an advanced class. So, okay. Okay. We also have CPI 3, which is on conversational belief change, coming up in December. What I'll do is I'll find a way to post the our offer summary from our last training that has the event calendar in it. Jedi mind hitting stuff. Joel, you want all that cool shit. We're going to teach that actually in vibrational influence and in Secrets of Internal Power, which is actually a self-defense training. We've got most of these things for 2018 are going to be either in Las Vegas or in San Diego. All right. Well, you know what? Before we do our trance, let me just tell you what we've got in terms of upcoming events. Okay. November 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, we have vibrational influence. That's an advanced hermetic skills training. Okay. It's going to teach you about remote influence, remote viewing, energy healing, and other forms of energetics. You can't get into that class unless you've been through Secrets of Personal Transformation or Killer Influence or CPI. You can get through with it. Awesome, Leslie. Thank you so much. So we're going to add you to the chat room. For those of you who can travel on short notice, we've got 2 3-day trainings coming up in August. August 21st through the 24th, we have a 3-day Secrets of Personality Transformation workshop. This is what we call a personal alchemy training. So it's all the 7 stages of advanced hypnotherapy from beginning, that form the building blocks of personality. We teach it as a 3-day, as a personal programming process. So we're going to teach you how to remove all the generalized negativity from your body. We're going to teach you how to remove all the safety lessons that keep you stuck. We're going to install the default driver states that move you forward and make you successful. Traits like playfulness, triumphant, curiosity, a sense of victory, and relentlessness. These are the traits that you must have to be successful. We're going to teach you how to change the voices in your head so that they only build you up and tell you about the things you're capable of, and so forth. If you want to access the collective unconsciousness, you need to go to vibrational influence in November. To do that, you must be trained in the stealth CPI protocols. So if you can't do it live, you better prove to me you can do it virtually. So there's 7 stages that we teach in the personality transformation process. We drill you on it as if you were going to be a hypnotherapist. And then on the last day, answer to what question? Is that similar to it is the identity by design process, Dustin. The only difference is that in Identity by Design, which is a 5-day workshop, it's the Identity by Design Real World Hypnosis 5-day is a full hypnotherapy certification. I'm going to train you in that process as if you're going to go out, hang up your shingle, and actually see clients for a living. The 3-day personality transformation workshop in Las Vegas, August 21st through the 21st through the 23rd, is the Identity by Design silo, and the first 2 days of it is taught like I'm going to teach you to go out and be a hypnotherapist. On the 3rd day, we transfer everything to self-directed hypnosis. In other words, self-hypnosis, self-programming, so that you can do the entire 7-stage personality transformation process on yourself in as little as 7.5 minutes. The level of transformation that you get from this is just unbelievable. So if you're interested in those trainings, email me about them. I'm happy to point you to the links. I don't want to distract you. I want you to get the package we're talking about now. We're also doing on August 27th through the 29th in Las Vegas, we're doing face reading and secrets of Chinese medical hypnotherapy. This is a more in-depth focus on how to determine people's personality, speed read their health, their constitution, their emotional makeup, and literally predict human behavior and apply and merge that field of Oriental medicine with the most powerful cutting edge vibrational hypnosis and hypnotherapy techniques out there. My teacher in Chinese face reading is a woman by the name of Lillian Pearl Bridges. This woman is so good. She can look at your face and tell you your Myers-Briggs profile. Her father was ex-CIA. She's being courted. At last time I talked to her, she was being romanced by two different intelligence agencies from two different countries. One was ours, another one was one close by, to come and work and train their agents to do face reading so they can spot terrorists and bad people. She for thousands of years, face reading was used for business applications. It was used for jury selection. It was used to determine sexual and romantic compatibility. Powerful, powerful stuff. It was also used to help people figure out what their mission was in life, what the Taoists called your golden path. So we're going to be taking that material, merging it with what we know about energetics, hypnotherapy, and creating a system of looking at people's faces, finding the stuff. And the interesting thing is when you actually fix the marking on the face, the emotional issue that is related to the marking on the face, the marking or the wrinkle actually goes away. It's the most crazy thing you've ever seen. It's no class like this has ever been taught before. We're doing it for the first time in Las Vegas, August 27th. Through the 29th. If you're interested in that, you can email me about it after you go through you finish buying your products and we do our induction. We have links for it, but again, I don't want to distract people, but I want to kind of bring you up to speed on what's going on. Yes, if you go to nlppower.com / 2018 HTL 241. That should give you the face reading and the personality transformation information. Okay. And of course, I've told you in September we're doing the 5-day regression therapy certification. Then October we're doing an 8-day certification in neurolinguistic programming. So it's a full practitioner certification. It's an 8-day immersion in the skills, concepts, and theories of neurolinguistic programming through the uniquely distorted worldview of David. You will also be certified through the Society of NLP. You'll get a certificate signed by Richard Bandler if that's important to you. And that will be it's an 8-day in November. It's on the website. You can find it. Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth, for posting that. That's the events list. It will, if it's not updated yet, it will be, and all this stuff will be there. Of course, we told you November we're doing vibrational influence. December we're doing CPI 3, and of course in January 24th through the 28th we're doing a 5-day Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis certification. We meet in September, Mr. Bankston. Excellent. Bill, give my best to Bill. He's a great guy. All right, you guys ready to trance out? All right, sit back, close your eyes, take a deep breath in. Oh, okay, I'll come back to that long question in a minute, Lori. I'm sorry. Let that breath out with a sigh. Deeper and deeper with every breath you take and every beat of your heart. All I want you to do, my friends, is relax. Let go. Listen to the sound of my voice. Any sounds you hear other than the sounds of my voice are simply the sounds of your natural environment or mine. They're not going to disturb you or distract you in any way. In fact, all they're going to do is signal you, remind you, reinforce inside your mind, body, and soul the fact that you're completely safe. That no matter how far inside you travel, no matter how deep inside your mind and body and soul you go, you will always be able to hear my words, follow my instructions, obey my commands, because you realize everything I say and everything I do is for you, to give you the life and the lifestyle that you want, the way that you want it, by your standards and your definitions. Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to focus all of your attention on the lids of your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to begin to relax those tiny muscles in your eyelids. I want you to relax them more and more and more. until you're so relaxed, they just don't want to work anymore. Until they're so relaxed, in fact, you couldn't actually open them without putting more tension back into them. And when you know you've got them that relaxed, so relaxed, they just don't want to work anymore, all I want you to do, give them a little test just to be sure they're so relaxed. They don't want to work anymore. And when you know you've got them that relaxed, you know that's true. Spread that relaxation through your entire being, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes and all points in between. Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to begin to relax your mind just as deeply as we're relaxing your body. And we're going to do that in a very, very special way. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to begin to imagine the alphabet backwards, starting with the letter Z. With each and every breath you take and each and every beat of your heart, starting with the letter Z, or as they say in Europe, Z. All I want you to do is relax those letters completely out of your mind. Allow them, if you will, to become smaller and darker and harder to see. Turn that volume all the way down, 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 deeper and deeper, down, 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 down. Now, I can't do this for you. Only you can. Allow this to happen. And when you know they're gone, they're locked down as deeply as mind as you are in your body, all I want you to do is allow your head to nod with honest, unconscious movements to let me know. And we'll continue with the next part of our process. Drifting and dreaming, floating, smaller and darker, harder to see, volume turning all the way down, down, down. Perfect. You're doing fantastic. Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'd like you to begin to use that amazing imagination of yours that I know that you have. And I'd like you to imagine, well, or if you prefer, remember a time in your life when you felt the most amazing, all-encompassing, satisfying, thrilling, and fulfilling full-body pleasure ever. Now, I'm not the pleasure police. I don't care what you were doing, who you were with, whether it was legal or illegal, whether there were substances involved, other people involved. I don't care. It can be as simple as biting into a freshly baked chocolate chip cookie right out of the oven, to your child's, the birth of your child, to a wedding, or anything that might bring you joy. I don't care. All I really care about, my friends, is that when you step into that memory, when you see what you see, and you hear what you hear, and you smell and you taste what you smell and you taste, it gives you the best feeling ever. And as you immerse yourself in that amazing place, I'd like you to notice that when you do that, when you see what you see, and you hear what you hear, and you smell and you taste what you smell and you taste, there's a place in your body where those feelings start, where they grow, and where they spread from. If you take a moment and just point to where you feel it, or if you're so relaxed you don't want to move, you can just know where it is inside. As you do that, as you turn your awareness into that space where you feel those feelings, I'd like you to notice something, that there's a color, maybe even a series of colors connected to those amazing feelings. and just know inside what those colors are. First impression. And then I'd like you to use that amazing imagination of yours that I know you have. And I'd like you to imagine a big ball of that energy floating above your head. I'd like you to notice that color radiating and filling the entire room that you're in. I'd like you to become aware of how the feelings in your body shift and change as with every breath you take and every beat of your heart, that amazing ball of energy begins to grow, begins to expand, begins to fill the entire room from floor to ceiling, from wall to wall, and all points in between. Notice how it wraps itself around you like an amazing blanket of safety, a cocoon, a shield, a suit of armor, insulating you, protecting you from any and all less than positive experiences, less than pleasurable experiences, real or imagined, while at the same time flooding your mind, flooding your body, flooding your spirit with everything he most wants or she wants, everything you most need in an infinite and ever-expanding, unlimited supply. And when you realize that's true, breathe that energy through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like fuel fills up a tank, like energy fills a battery. Anchor it into your neurology, your psychology, your spirit, your soul, so fully, so completely. No force in the universe can turn it off or take it away, not even you. And when you know that's true, when you realize it's forever, test it. Try to turn it off, try to take it away, and notice what happens instead. Many people report that it's permanent now. The more they try to take it away, the more intense those feelings become. And they do. Because for as long as your heart continues to beat and your lungs continue to breathe, this pleasure, this power, this energy will continue to grow, to evolve, to bring you good feelings and a growing sense of personal safety and power. In whatever way, in whatever definition that power means to you. For as long as your heart continues to beat and your lungs continue to breathe, you will continue to grow and evolve. As you go through all of the materials we've talked about today, and you become more powerful with your CPI skills, you'll rapidly discover the world giving you more and more of what you want. Not because I say so, but because you own the skills, the awareness, the ability to express your influence in all the ways that are right and natural and appropriate for you. You'll find yourself automatically drawing into your life the situations and circumstances and people and events that move your life forward. You'll find opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to play and practice your CPI skills after you've learned them and practiced them. In fact, the interesting thing about our unconscious mind, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's not one thing. You know, it really doesn't matter whether you're talking to the sports psychologists of the former Soviet Union, you're talking to a neuro-linguistic programmer. Milton Erickson himself said that we had different parts in our minds and in our bodies. Whether you're looking at the different forms of neuroscience, regardless of what culture, what time period, what belief system, or what tech level they were using, they all agree on this one fact, that we are legion, that the entity we call ourself, the I inside of us, is actually not one thing. It's many things. It's many I's communicating, collaborating, connecting, and coordinating in different ways. And the most interesting thing about that process is that each part of us controls or has dominion over a specific area. For example, we all know that our left brain controls our logical, linear, analytical processes. We also know for most people, our right brains are our nonlinear, emotional, spatial-oriented side, the part of us that's really creative. Both sides are really smart, and both sides communicate through yet another part of our brain called the corpus callosum. We also know that there are different layers to our brain, that we have a top layer, the newest layer, we call the neocortex, that rationalizes and analyzes, judges and criticizes. That we have an emotional brain, or mammalian brain, the middle or limbic system. And we have a reptile brain that controls our primal drives. But we also have a head. So we know about the head brain pretty well. But we have other parts. We have other brains. For example, most people don't know that your heart has a brain, that the heart brain governs and controls all the things that are important to us emotionally, socially, the values that we hold near and dear, the checklists that we consider desirable and undesirable are modulated through the heart brain. And we also know that we have a brain in our gut brain. And that gut brain, well, its area is survival, identity, our continued existence and sense of self-preservation in this universe. Now, those are just the parts that we know about consciously. And of course, you can begin to imagine that there are many, many, many other parts. Some we consciously recognize, some we consciously understand, and so many more that we only unconsciously understand. The secret thoughts and parts of us that activate at precise moments for precise reasons. The interesting thing about those parts is they all have a job to do. They all have a reason. They all have a language that is slightly unique from one part to another. And perhaps the most interesting part of all is that there's a part of us that controls and communicates and coordinates the functions of all those other parts. And I'm not exactly sure how that part will begin to reconfigure and reorient all those other parts. How that part will immediately change the configurations, the orders, the sequences. How it will connect one part of the brain to another differently to allow you to magnetize success into your life, to embody, personify, express all of the skills that you've learned consciously and unconsciously. How it will reach out to that mirror neuron part of you, that part of your neurology that takes in information, intention, and recreates it inside of you for the express purpose of understanding and internalizing all the intentions and communications you're receiving, that allows you to internally replicate all the things you've seen me hear and do, to understand the intentions and to act upon them in the way that's most appropriate for you. I really do not know how your unconscious will make those changes. And it's not necessary for me to know. It's not even necessary for you to know. It's not even necessary for you to consciously pay attention to anything I'm saying. You could actively listen. You could passively listen. You could drift off to your favorite faraway vacation spot, letting that wonderful color of pleasure grow stronger inside of you while your unconscious changes everything for you. And I'm going to allow that process to take place. I'm going to let your important unconscious coordinator make all those changes while I talk to other parts of your mind, body, and soul that move your life forward. So in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'd like you to scan your body. I'd like you to notice any place where you're holding on to any density or tightness or tension. Many times, these are places where our body has stored a less than positive belief or memory or experience. Sometimes we consciously know what they are. Sometimes we just unconsciously know. When you find those places, I want you to breathe your pleasure color through those areas. Let it flow over and around and through that area like hot water running over an ice cube. Notice how those areas begin to melt, to dissolve away. Solving, dissolving, and resolving from your body. Solving, dissolving, and resolving from your mind for all the right reasons. And in its place, everything you most want and need and desire instead. There's no need to measure it or manage it. Just notice that process taking place, managed by those other parts. Your job is simply to bear witness to the all-powerful unconscious mind, tapping in and waking up to those resources and making them available to you to do what you want it to do in the shortest, most effective amount of time possible. Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'd like you to imagine that as that process deepens, another part of you could begin to float up, to rise up out of your physical body into that beautiful cloud of pleasure color that's floating above you, merging into it like a drop of water merging back into the ocean from which it came. And many of my clients and my students report that as you merge into that cloud, as you become one with the sea of energy that is you, they feel a sense of reconnection, of reunion, of coming home to their full beingness, their full totality of who they are as a spiritual, mental, and emotional being. Oh, they still retain their sense of personal identity, who they are in this three-dimensional world. But many of my students report a massive expansion, as if the true scope of who they are and what they came here to do and the powers they have at their disposal are infinitely, exponentially growing. As if they'd always been there, we just forgot. And as you travel deeper and deeper into that wonderful color, go ahead and breathe it through your entire being. Let all the different parts of you fully reconnect the way they were supposed to from the beginning, washing away any program, any belief, any memory that was installed inside of you without your knowledge, without your consent, returning you to a more fully empowered state where everything is possible, where you can learn, really, really learn, embody, and express all of your power, all of your abilities, the ones you consciously know about, the ones you unconsciously know about, and making all the appropriate changes inside, outside, above, and below in the way that's absolutely right and perfect. Take all the time you need to let that process take place. Become aware of how your inner awareness is flowing deeper and deeper and deeper into that place. And some of my students often find themselves moving through time and space. Some of my students who've attended my Stealth CPI classes often find themselves traveling back in time to the very first day of their class, seeing themselves walking into the classroom, floating down into that body and living that class over and over and over again. And each time they do, they learn and deepen the learning and get better and better and better. In fact, they often report they find themselves cycling through all the learnings so fully, so completely, honing and refining them. It's almost like if you've ever seen the movie Groundhog Day, where even though it's the same day over and over and over again, each day that comes, he uses it more efficiently, makes the most of it, builds on the previous learnings until even though only a day has gone by, well, he's had years of learning in a very short time. Now, I don't know how your unconscious mind will accelerate your learning, will make the most of the time we have to amplify your ability to control your own state, to connect and control your own state and transfer that state to others in a way that causes people to immediately like and trust and believe in you. I'm not sure how you'll become aware of the honest signals. Which part of you will tap into them first? Will it be the right brain or the left brain? The front part of your mind or the back? The heart brain, the gut brain, the head brain? Which brain will start the process? And how rapidly will the rest catch up? I don't know. But over the coming days and weeks and months, you may soon discover deeper learnings as you acquire more material from the recommendations we've made. And you practice and you play. You'll naturally find people doing what you say, giving you what you want, and feeling tremendously, tremendously good about it. Not because I say so, not because I'm any great authority figure, but because that's what these skills do. That's what your unconscious is doing for you. So you will be able to do these processes unconsciously and turn them on consciously and use them in deliberate and direct ways to create the life you want the way that you want it. I'm not sure how rapidly you'll discover cause and effect and awareness and complex equivalence languaging flowing from your lips in direct, deliberate, under conscious control for a specific outcome, and watching the effect in speaking, in writing, texting, video, how they'll make unstoppable suggestions to the people who listen to you, realizing fully inside your own mind, body, and soul that they work just as powerfully on you for all the best reasons. So you can give yourself the very best, most neurologically empowered suggestions imaginable. Your ability to program yourself for increasing success will happen automatically each night while you sleep and while you dream. These processes will just happen. One part of your brain will connect to another part, and eventually all the brains will unify into a cohesive, aligned, unstoppable you, embodying, empowering, perceiving, expressing all of these changes in all the ways that give you the life that you want, the way that you want it. I'm not sure how you'll take all that, put it all together, combine it with the power of authority and affinity and acquiescence and all the other things we discussed, that we talked about in our webinar. As you combine what you've learned in this webinar with the things you've learned from our other resources, your life will change for the better in ways you haven't even begun to realize yet. And perhaps in some ways, you already have. As you cycle through your own internal training, your own personal Groundhog Day, each and every time you successfully complete that amazing sequence of events, learning and deepening and honing and magnifying your skills, there's a wonderful feeling that you get. A feeling that lets you know you've got it. That's the feeling of learning, the feeling of embodying the competency, the skill, the willingness to do what's required to learn and express your will in this world through the tools and the skills of CPI and people reading, hypnosis, NLP, whatever other technologies you have at your disposal. You'll find you're unconsciously integrating all of them in the way that's right and natural for you. And as you focus on that feeling you get, as you come to the culmination, the climax, if you will, of that amazing experience, there's a feeling that you get, and there's a place in your body where those wonderful feelings start and where they grow and where they spread from. Point to where you feel it or just notice it. Notice that color floating above your head. Breathe it through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like hot air or helium fills up a balloon. Anchor it in so fully, so completely, no force in the universe can turn it off or take it away. Not even you. And when you know that's true, when you recognize the fact of it, test it. Try to go back to the old you. Try to turn off these amazing new abilities and skills and powers and feelings. And notice what happens instead. And when you're ready, when you know it's true, and you've got this, find yourself floating back into the body, breathing all of these changes, modifications, updates, upgrades, informations, and revelations with you, embodying them, personifying them, expressing them, using them consciously and unconsciously in every way, in every situation and circumstance. Feeling amazing about it. In a moment, not yet, but in a moment, you're going to fully integrate back into your body. All of these skills installed, intact, amplifying and accelerating every moment of every day, for now, forever. For as long as your heart continues to beat and your lungs continue to breathe, this is the new direction, the new trajectory of your reality, personifying and embodying all of the skills, qualities, and characteristics of a master of transformation, persuasion, education, communication, for all the right reasons. In a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. When I reach the number 5, you can emerge from this process. Number 1, feel yourself returning to this place, as one of my students likes to say, we laughingly call reality, because we realize now that reality is what you decide it is, that you have within you now the power, the skill, the permission, and the authority to change reality in any way you desire. It starts within you, and it only gets bigger and stronger for all the right reasons. Number 2, all of my suggestions from me to you, from you to your own other than conscious mind, are now 10 times more powerful. 100 times more permanent, 1,000 times more thrilling, fulfilling, and satisfying than ever before. Embraced, held, locked into that part of your mind, body, and soul that most wants and desires, can implement, facilitate, embody, express, personify, and manifest these changes in all the ways that give you the life and the lifestyle that you want, the way that you want it, by your standards, your expectations. Number 3, always at least 3 ways. 3, to overcome any situation, obstacle, or circumstance that you may face. Always at least 3 solutions to any problem you need to solve. And your other than conscious mind will now easily, effortlessly, and automatically generate those solutions and implement them now in the quickest, easiest, most effective way for the good of yourself and all concerned. Number 4, because it's all for you. You signed up for this course. You showed up. You listened, you learned, you studied, you practiced, you stayed the course. You earned the rewards and the right to keep them. It's your reality. It's your truth. It's your life. And you live it to the fullest, starting now. On the next count, you can emerge from this process like a phoenix rising from the ashes, like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. One phase of your transformation complete, the next phase, the best phase, just beginning. Ready to spread your wings, take to the air, and soar amongst the clouds, to experience life, the universe, and everything from a much higher place. A more enlightened and empowered perspective. Head clear, mind clear. Thinking, acting with calm, self-assurance, feeling good all over. Glad to be alive, ready to thrive. Number 5, take your time, come on back. Notice how good you feel. When you're back, just type "I'm back" in the chat room. You guys are welcome. Did you enjoy that? All right. Thank you guys so much for staying with us. Hope we see you in the chats and in CPI 2. Make sure you grab your courses. You have been primed. You have been programmed. You have the gun. Now you need the bullets. Go get the bullets, and I'll see you on the other side. Good night and God bless.